Chapter 529, The Heavenly God Academy's Trepidation, the Xianyuan Emperor's Xianyuan Sword. When the Xianyuan family was mentioned, the faces of the elders present all carried a hint of excitement. However, the elder whose aura surpassed the quasi-emperor realm frowned at this moment. They were all the most peak existences of the Heavenly God Academy. At the same time, they were also considered the top experts of the entire central domain. Therefore, their conspiracy naturally concerned the safety of the entire central domain. However, at this moment, they were plotting against the Xianyuan family and the possessor of the human emperor fate of this era. Although we can use this possessor of the human emperor fate to lure out the Xianyuan family is not as simple as imagined. After all, we still have no way to decipher the things that the former Xianyuan human emperor left behind. The elder then sighed lightly and spoke slowly. After speaking, his face carried a hint of helplessness. At the same time, when recalling the former Xianyuan human emperor, a trace of horror also appeared on the elder's face, as if the elder was still extremely fearful of the former Xianyuan human emperor. The last time we attacked the Xianyuan family, it was the foundation left behind by the Xianyuan human emperor that blocked our offense. Otherwise, the entire Xianyuan family would have probably been destroyed by us already. Why wait until now? Just as the elder finished speaking, another elder next to him, dressed in a gray robe, spoke up angrily. Furthermore, it could be heard from his words that this was not the first time they had tried to attack the Xianyuan family. Perhaps in the ancient past, they had already made a move against the Xianyuan family. Therefore, this time we need to borrow the power of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and the Heaven Mending Pavilion to probe the possessor of the human emperor fate, whether we make a move or not, and simultaneously use their two forces to uncover the hidden cards of the Xianyuan family. The elder next to them, dressed in a purple robe, slowly opened his eyes and spoke. As he said this, his gaze carried a hint of murderous aura. His entire person was like a god of slaughter sitting on the ground. Even the space around him began to tremble continuously because of the aura emanating from his body. It's all our fault for not paying attention to the Xianyuan human emperor back then. If we hadn't let him grow, then why would we have so many troubles now? Subsequently, another elder beside them spoke slowly again. As he reached this point, his face carried a hint of helplessness. At the same time, when he thought of the former Xianyuan human emperor, his face also carried a trace of killing intent. Precisely because of the Xianyuan human emperor, we cannot allow another child of destiny who possesses the human emperor fate to grow up, otherwise the tens of millions of years of planning by my Heavenly God Academy will completely end. The elder who spoke first only spoke slowly after hearing the words of these elders. As he reached this point, his eyes carried a hint of solemnity. At the same time, it could be seen that the elder's face carried an expression of excitement, and this excitement contained a hint of perversion. The Xianyuan human emperor has already been driven out of this world. It can even be said that the current Xianyuan human emperor should be lost. Therefore, as long as we guard against the Xianyuan human emperor's Xianyuan sword, we can resolve the Xianyuan family and the possessor of the human emperor fate of this era. However, the next sentence, spoken by the elder dressed in a purple robe, caused all the elders present to become solemn, because they heard the thing they least wanted to hear. That was the former Xianyuan human emperor's Xianyuan sword. The Xianyuan sword was considered the most top ultimate emperor weapon in the entire world. It could even be said that the Xianyuan sword was not merely an ultimate emperor weapon, because the Xianyuan sword was the companion sword of the Xianyuan human emperor, and it was only one step away from the legendary immortal artifact. This was also the thing the elders of the Heavenly God Academy feared the most. At the same time, the main reason these elders of the Heavenly God Academy had never attacked the Xianyuan family was because of the Xianyuan sword. However, they currently did not know where the Xianyuan sword was located. It was even unknown whether the Xianyuan sword followed the Xianyuan human emperor when he was expelled from this world by them. It turned out that the former Xianyuan human emperor did not leave this world on his own. Rather, the experts of the Heavenly God Academy expelled him from his continent. It could even be said that even a formerly powerful Xianyuan human emperor would have found it difficult to eliminate the Heavenly God Academy. However, the experts of the Heavenly God Academy were also unable to kill the Xianyuan human emperor. Ultimately, all they could do was rely on the strength of the Heavenly God Academy to expel the Xianyuan human emperor from his continent. Unfortunately, the great battle back then allowed the Xianyuan human emperor to find an opportunity and fix the Xianyuan sword within this world. It could even be said that the current Xianyuan sword was a butcher knife hanging over the heads of everyone in the Heavenly God Academy. The Xianyuan sword was not merely the companion item of the Xianyuan human emperor. Moreover, it could mobilize the power of all living beings. Even if a quasi-emperor level possessor of the human emperor fate obtained a Xianyuan sword, The power he could mobilize would be enough to slay a great emperor-level expert. This was also the reason the Heavenly God Academy was afraid. At the same time, this was also the reason the Xianyuan family had remained in seclusion. Naturally, this was also the main reason the Heavenly God Academy dared not attack the Xianyuan family, because they could not be certain whether the Xianyuan family possessed the Xianyuan sword. If the Xianyuan family had the Xianyuan sword, then the top experts of the Xianyuan family could also mobilize the Xianyuan sword relying on the Xianyuan family bloodline. At that time, even if their Heavenly God Academy could destroy the Xianyuan family, they would at least be severely injured by the Xianyuan sword. It was even possible that the top experts within their Heavenly God Academy might perish at the Xianyuan family. This was also the reason the Xianyuan family had been able to survive for so long. Since the Xianyuan human emperor left, the Heavenly God Academy had been continuously plotting matters concerning the Xianyuan family. It could even be said that the last time the Xianyuan family was attacked by the entire central domain was a scheme orchestrated by the Heavenly God Academy. It could even be said that the Heavenly God Academy was the driving force behind all of this. They wanted to test whether the Xianyuan family still possessed the hidden cards left behind by the Xianyuan human emperor. Unfortunately, that time, their attempt to incite the top forces of the entire central domain to attack the Xianyuan family ended in failure. Even when the top-level experts within their Heavenly God Academy made a move, they failed. Moreover, that time resulted in the demise of two alternative path attainment experts within the Heavenly God Academy, which was another reason the Heavenly God Academy dared not launch an attack against the Xianyuan family. What was more important was that the Xianyuan family did not even use the Xianyuan sword that time. The hidden card left behind by the Xianyuan human emperor was enough to successfully repel them. And that incident consumed the formation protecting the ancestral land of the Xianyuan family. This was also why the Xianyuan family remained secluded from the world. Chapter 530, The Cold-Blooded Heavenly God Academy, the Great Emperor Howard. However, even so, Heavenly God Academy dared not directly act against the Xianyuan family, as the Xianyuan family already had an alternative path to enlightenment in its ranks. And if the Xianyuan family also possessed the Xianyuan sword, then Heavenly God Academy naturally would not dare to act against them. Of course, Heavenly God Academy also had its own trump card, just like when they expelled Xianyuan human emperor from his continent. They used their trump card. This also severely damaged Heavenly God Academy's origin chi. Otherwise, how could Heavenly God Academy be wary of the Xianyuan family? After all, even a human emperor realm expert, Xianyuan human emperor, was expelled from this continent by them. Of course, at the same time, Xianyuan human emperor was expelled from this continent. He also severely injured Heavenly God Academy's trump card. Now, after 1,000,000 years, Heavenly God Academy's true trump card still has not awakened. If outsiders knew that someone in Heavenly God Academy had been dormant for 1,000,000 years, I am afraid all the cultivators outside would not believe it. After all, even a great emperor-level expert can only live for 20,000 years. And even if one breaks through to the human emperor realm, one can only live for 40,000 years. The human emperor realm belongs to the emperor realm, but the emperor realm is not the human emperor realm. This is also why cultivators who have the opportunity to break through to the great emperor realm all want to break through to the human emperor realm. If this possessor of the human emperor fate had not appeared, then the Xianyuan family should not have emerged so early. Moreover, more importantly, those supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone should make their move in this era, so we might be able to wait for the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone to act, and then directly move to annihilate the entire Xianyuan family. At this moment, an elder in white robes slowly looked towards the Forbidden Zone and said, with a calm expression on his face after speaking. It was as if the actions of these supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone had nothing to do with them. It could even be said that the actions of these supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone had no impact on them whatsoever. If the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone make a move, then the Xianyuan family will definitely not stand idly by. After all, the Xianyuan family also needs the power of all living beings. And after our last scheme, even if the Xianyuan sword of the Xianyuan family can display powerful combat strength, I am afraid the current Xianyuan sword is no longer comparable to the former Xianyuan sword. After hearing the words of this elder, the purple-clothed elder who spoke first instantly lit up, and then he slowly looked towards the Forbidden Zone as well. At the same time, a hint of joy could be seen in the eyes of this purple-clothed elder. In fact, when they previously schemed for these top forces to attack the Xianyuan family, they had already included the Xianyuan sword in their plans. After all, the Xianyuan sword needs the power of all living beings to unleash its true strength. And by pushing the Xianyuan family to be against all living beings, the Xianyuan sword naturally cannot unleash its true strength. It can even be said that as long as the Xianyuan family is pushed to be against all living beings, the Xianyuan sword of the Xianyuan family will not be able to unleash its true power. At that time, Heavenly God Academy would naturally easily take down the Xianyuan family. Now we should first consider how to deal with this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate. After all, we cannot just watch a possessor of the Human Emperor Fate grow into the Human Emperor realm. Otherwise, if he forges another Xianyuan sword, wouldn't Heavenly God Academy's plan be completely ruined? Although the Elder's idea was very good, some people disagreed with his idea at this moment. After all, the growth rate of a possessor of the Human Emperor Fate is not as simple as they imagined. Therefore, the Elder of Heavenly God Academy decided to deal with this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate first. After all, who knows if this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate will forge another Xianyuan sword? If the possessor of the Human Emperor Fate in this era once again forges a Xianyuan sword, then Heavenly God Academy's plan will completely vanish. Based on his last appearance, the current strength of this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate should be in the Great Saint realm, which poses no great threat to us. After hearing the words of this elder, another elder spoke with a look of disdain on his face. Indeed, for them, a Great Saint-level cultivator poses no threat whatsoever. Even if this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate possesses the Xianyuan sword, he cannot contend with them. After all, how could a Great Saint-level cultivator possibly mobilize the true power within a Xianyuan sword? Unless this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate can break through to the Quasi-Emperor realm, or even break through to the legendary alternative path to enlightenment. However, what they didn't know was that Chu Fan had already successfully broken through to the Quasi-Emperor realm at this time, and more importantly, Chu Fan was not just accompanied by one alternative path to enlightenment. Of course, there was also more than one alternative path to enlightenment within Heavenly God Academy. Perhaps we can send two powerful experts to bring this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate to Heavenly God Academy, and then let him grow up in our Heavenly God Academy. This way, wouldn't this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate obey our Heavenly God Academy? Just then, an elder slowly stood up and offered a suggestion. After speaking, he looked forward to the replies of the elders present. After all, if they really brought this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate back to Heavenly God Academy, with Heavenly God Academy's capabilities, they could naturally cultivate this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate. Moreover, if this possessor of the Human Emperor Fate then obeyed Heavenly God Academy's words, then Heavenly God Academy's plan could naturally be easily concluded. And even if the former Xianyuan Human Emperor had the ability to return to this world, it would be very easy for them to deal with him. After all, they would have already cultivated another Human Emperor level expert. Although this method is indeed feasible, did Fourth Brother forget about Xianyuan Howren? He was also Great Emperor Howren, whom our Heavenly God Academy cultivated from a young age, and you see, his final choice also caused severe losses to our Heavenly God Academy. The purple-clothed elder, upon hearing the words of this elder, also slowly stood up and spoke, his eyes filled with anger after he finished. It was as if the former Great Emperor Howren had caused a very serious impact on Heavenly God Academy. And the other elders, upon hearing the words of this purple-clothed elder, immediately extinguished the thoughts that had just arisen in their hearts. After all, they all knew the impact that the former Xianyuan Howren had on Heavenly God Academy. It could even be said that if it weren't for the former Xianyuan Howren, then perhaps Heavenly God Academy would have already completely annihilated the Xianyuan family. Chapter 531, The True Past of Emperor Howren and the Past Schemes of the Heavenly God Academy. It could be said that Xianyuan Howren was the most unsuccessful great emperor they ever nurtured. He was even the great emperor who had the greatest impact on their Heavenly God Academy. Xianyuan Howren cultivated the Qi of Howren, so ultimately his awakening cannot truly be blamed on my Heavenly God Academy. The elder in the middle slowly waved his hand and spoke with a sense of helplessness. It turned out that when the Heavenly God Academy discovered Xianyuan Howren's talent, they brought him into the Heavenly God Academy. Moreover, the Xianyuan family was not yet in seclusion at that time. Perhaps it could be said that the Heavenly God Academy at that time wanted to use Xianyuan Howren, this top-tier prodigy, to deal with the Xianyuan family. After all, the Xianyuan family might not have known then that the Heavenly God Academy had driven their old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Xianyuan Human Emperor, out of this world. At the same time, the Heavenly God Academy also wished to completely dismantle the Xianyuan family by utilizing Xianyuan Howren. And Xianyuan Howren's strength back then was not to be underestimated. It could even be said that Xianyuan Howren's talent far exceeded their imagination back then. The Heavenly God Academy expended considerable effort to nurture Xianyuan Howren, and at the same time, they completely corrupted Xianyuan Howren's mind. They then positioned Xianyuan Howren as an adversary of the Xianyuan family. Because of this, Xianyuan Howren had been an adversary of the Xianyuan family ever since he reached the Great Saint realm. Ultimately, the Xianyuan family completely gave up on Xianyuan Howren. Of course, Their abandonment of Xianyuan Haoran did not mean that Xianyuan Haoran had abandoned himself. Although Xianyuan Haoran's mind was constantly corrupted, he still knew that he belonged to the Xianyuan family. Therefore, he did not completely annihilate the people of the Xianyuan family. In fact, he often spared members of the Xianyuan family. However, the Heavenly God Academy at that time believed that Xianyuan Haoran could eventually become their killing machine, and so they continued to nurture Zuan Haoran. What they found unbelievable was that while they were nurturing Xianyuan Haoran, the Xianyuan family unexpectedly produced another peerless prodigy. Moreover, the growth of this peerless prodigy was in no way inferior to Xianyuan Haoran's. This made everyone at the Heavenly God Academy feel a sense of urgency. Thus, they spared no effort in nurturing Xianyuan Haoran. Ultimately, Xianyuan Haoran and that peerless prodigy of the Xianyuan family, Xianyuan Longting, both became experts of the quasi-emperor realm. However, both men seemed to sense the battle intent in each other's hearts. Therefore, Xianyuan Haoran and Xianyuan Longting were constantly locked in battle. However, the final outcome allowed the Heavenly God Academy to breathe a sigh of relief. This was because Xianyuan Haoran attained the Tao and became an expert of the Great Emperor realm before Xianyuan Longting. This also represented the Heavenly God Academy's ultimate victory over the Xianyuan family. What they found incredible, however, was that Xianyuan Longting actually achieved a breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm despite the suppression of the Great Emperor level. One must know that the existence of only one expert in the Great Emperor realm per epoch is an extremely difficult rule to break. It could even be said that no one had been able to break this rule for tens of millions of years. Yet, Xianyuan Longting broke this rule and achieved a breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm. This successfully astonished the Heavenly God Academy. Fortunately, Xianyuan Haoran cultivated the Qi of Haoran, so the great battle between Xianyuan Haoran and Xianyuan Longting did not end with the victory of Xianyuan Longting, that peerless prodigy. The battles between the two of them became more frequent later on. However, most of the time, Xianyuan Haoran, this top-tier great emperor who possessed the Qi of Haoran, gained the upper hand. Just when the entire Heavenly God Academy thought Xianyuan Haoran would suppress the Xianyuan family, Xianyuan Haoran seemed to have an awakening. After a battle with Xianyuan Longting, he then returned to the Xianyuan family. Ultimately, he even achieved the awakening of his human emperor bloodline. One must know that Xianyuan Haoran's strength became even more terrifying after the awakening of the human emperor bloodline. Although Xianyuan Haoran's strength after the awakening of the human emperor bloodline still could not compare to the former Xianyuan human emperor ancestor of the Xianyuan family, but his current strength had already far surpassed the initial Xianyuan Haoran. At the same time, Xianyuan Longting naturally also achieved the awakening of the human emperor bloodline, which belonged to the human emperor lineage, just like Xianyuan Haoran. After Xianyuan Haoran successfully achieved the awakening of the human emperor bloodline, Xianyuan Longting and Xianyuan Haoran discussed matters. Xianyuan Longting also began to pursue the Tao of his old ancestor. Although Xianyuan Longting did not know that his old ancestor had been expelled from this world by the Heavenly God Academy. However, their Xianyuan family naturally possessed a Tao leading to the outside world. Therefore, Xianyuan Longting used this Tao to search for his old ancestor. Because of this, Xianyuan Longting, the Longting great emperor of that epoch, completely vanished from this world. And after Xianyuan Longting vanished from this world, Xianyuan Haoran once again returned to the Heavenly God Academy. However, this time, Xianyuan Haoran returned to the Heavenly God Academy for revenge. Because he had already uncovered the Heavenly God Academy's conspiracy. He knew that the Heavenly God Academy was not as simple as it seemed. But relying on his great emperor-level strength and his human emperor bloodline, Xianyuan Haoran believed he could foil this conspiracy. What Xianyuan Haoran did not know, however, was that the Heavenly God Academy had been waiting for his arrival. And the various alternative path attainment experts of the Heavenly God Academy, along with the Academy's hidden foundations, completely engaged in a fierce great battle with Xianyuan Haoran this time. In the end, the Heavenly God Academy relied on its foundations to defeat Xianyuan Haoran, leaving him lost in this starry sky. Because of this, Xianyuan Haoran, the great Emperor Haoran, completely vanished from this world. However, even the experts of the Heavenly God Academy did not know where Xianyuan Haoran ultimately went, because they too had exiled Xianyuan Haoran from this world. This meant that Xianyuan Haoran's fate was similar to that of Xianyuan Human Emperor. And because of Xianyuan Haoran, the Heavenly God Academy fully realized the extraordinary nature of the Xianyuan family. Therefore, the Heavenly God Academy began to target the Xianyuan family. Moreover, the Xianyuan family later produced another existence at the Great Emperor level. However, This great emperor-level existence later traveled to the other side of the starry sky when his lifespan was nearing its end. Thus, this great emperor-level existence of the Xianyuan family also completely vanished. Nevertheless, this still made the Heavenly God Academy feel a sense of urgency. This laid the groundwork for the subsequent attack on the Xianyuan family by all the forces of the central domain. Later, the Xianyuan family produced several more great emperor-level existences, but none of these great emperor-level existences perished. Similarly, they did not self-sever to become a supreme, but instead, they also vanished from this world. This successfully allowed the Heavenly God Academy to set up a trap, making all the forces in the central domain believe that the Xianyuan family held the secret to longevity. Naturally, these top-tier forces in the central domain would not miss this opportunity. This is why these top-tier forces in the central domain attacked the Xianyuan family. However, the Heavenly God Academy, which truly possessed the secret to longevity, was left untouched because they did not know the Heavenly God Academy held the secret to longevity, and, at the same time, the Heavenly God Academy was too mysterious, so naturally, they dared not provoke it. Chapter 532 The Decision of the Heavenly God Academy. Two unconventional Dao achievers emerged from seclusion. The people present fell silent after hearing the name Great Emperor Howren. After all, the Xianyuan family was indeed too abnormal. It was only a million-year-old family, yet it possessed such terrifying heritage. One must know that within these million years, the Xianyuan family had 6 great emperor-level experts. Even their Heavenly God Academy had not achieved such speed in tens of millions of years. This was also why the Heavenly God Academy was so wary of the Xianyuan family. More importantly, the Heavenly God Academy also knew that the Xianyuan family had a top expert prodigy in this era. Although this top expert prodigy was no match for the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. However, if not for the possessor of the human Emperor Fate, then this top expert prodigy of the Xianyuan family should have been able to grow into a great emperor-level expert. Furthermore, it was even more important that the former Xianyuan Longting became a great emperor realm expert when it had great emperor realm experts. Therefore, this top expert prodigy of the Xianyuan family might also be able to break through to the great emperor realm when the possessor of the human Emperor Fate becomes the human emperor. Thus, the current Heavenly God Academy could be said to be extremely wary of the Xianyuan family. In fact, if they had the chance now, they would definitely eliminate the Xianyuan family as quickly as possible. Now, the Xianyuan family should all be focusing on the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. So now is our best opportunity and also our best time to make a move on this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. After a long while, an elder present slowly spoke, but as he said this, his eyes held a terrifying killing intent. It was as if the very sky could not withstand his killing intent. At this moment, his gaze seemed to pierce through space and time, looking towards the eastern region. He was also part of the Heavenly God Academy's heritage, and more importantly, his cultivation had already reached the perfected quasi-emperor realm. It could be said that he was one of the most top expert existences in this world. And because of the Heavenly God Academy, the age of this peak quasi-emperor realm expert was not just 10,000 years. One must know that the lifespan of ordinary cultivators in the quasi-emperor realm rarely exceeded 10,000 years. In fact, their lifespan could not even reach 10,000 years. The Great Saint-level cultivators of the Xianyuan family have already appeared on the battlefield, but these Great Saint-level cultivators of the Xianyuan family have not chosen to intervene yet. Clearly, they are all waiting for the appearance of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. Another elder also spoke slowly at this moment. After speaking, he gently traced the sky in front of him with his hand. The next second, images of several Great Saint-level elders wearing Xianyuan family attire appear before them. It was likely that these Great Saint-level elders of the Xianyuan family never imagined that they had already been spied upon. And those who spied on them were the top expert-level experts of the Heavenly God Academy. Perhaps the Xianyuan family also anticipated that this possessor of the human Emperor Fate has a strong connection with the underworld. Otherwise, how could they appear on the battlefield? Another elder also nodded at this moment, but after speaking, his eyes indeed carried a look of deep solemnity. Because although the Xianyuan family had only dispatched a few divine rank existences, they also knew that the Xianyuan family and this possessor of the human Emperor Fate were already completely linked. Although the Xianyuan family and the possessor of the human Emperor Fate had not yet met. However, from the current situation, it could be seen that the Xianyuan family was determined to obtain this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. Perhaps we can eliminate these great saints of the Xianyuan family in advance. Although these great saints do not affect us, it can also be used to discuss the Xianyuan family. At this moment, another elder in a purple robe said with a mischievous smile. After speaking, he glanced at the images of these great saint-level elders of the Xianyuan family in front of him. Although we can indeed eliminate these great saints of the Xianyuan family now, doing so will also attract the attention of the Xianyuan family. Therefore, we should now find a way to deal with the possessor of the human emperor fate. The elder in a white robe pouted after hearing his words. After speaking, he also began to ponder. Since the possessor of the human emperor fate should have an alternative Dao attainer by his side, then our Heavenly God Academy will dispatch 2 alternative Dao attainers to bring this possessor of the human emperor fate to our Heavenly God Academy. At that time, wouldn't both the possessor of the human emperor fate and the Xianyuan family be within our calculations? At this moment, the elder in the gray robe slowly stood up and spoke. After speaking, his eyes still held a calm expression. It was as if, to him, a possessor of the human emperor fate was not a truly top expert. Of course, Chu Fan, a great saint-level cultivator, was naturally nothing in front of them. However, all of this was merely their own imagination. After all, the current Chu Fan had already entered the quasi-emperor realm. And more importantly, Chu Fan also had 3 alternative Dao attainer existences by his side. More importantly, although the Heavenly Son was an alternative Dao attainer, however, his strength was not inferior to that of an ordinary great emperor-level expert. If that's the case, then let old Fifth and I go. The elder in the purple robe also slowly spoke to the gray-robed elder in front of him at this moment, because his own strength had already reached the level of alternative path to enlightenment. And the strength of old Fifth by his side had also reached the level of alternative path to enlightenment. Therefore, there was naturally no problem for them to deal with an alternative Dao attainer. At the same time, this elder also had full confidence. The gray-robed elder also nodded after hearing the words of the purple-robed elder. And the elder referred to as Old Fifth also nodded calmly after hearing their words. Although the possessor of the human emperor fate was indeed heaven-defying. However, this possessor of the human emperor fate had not yet matured. Therefore, they naturally would not fear this possessor of the human emperor fate. And with the Heavenly God Academy making its decision, the purple-robed elder and the elder referred to as Old Fifth also left the Heavenly God Academy. I hope this time we can successfully bring back that possessor of the human emperor fate. After all, if the possessor of the human emperor fate is brought back, the Xianyuan family will completely lose its bargaining chip. The gray-robed elder of the Heavenly God Academy looked at the 2 alternative Dao attainer experts of the Heavenly God Academy who were leaving and sighed softly. And bringing back this possessor of the human emperor fate would also allow them to deal with their subsequent plans. Chapter 533: The Omen of the Xianyuan Family. The birth of the Xianyuan family ancestor. After all, they needed to use the possessor of the human emperor fate to completely lure out the entire Xianyuan family. However, what the Heavenly God Academy did not know was that just as the Heavenly God Academy deployed 2 existences who had taken the alternative path to enlightenment, a terrifying pillar of light instantly erupted from the back mountain of the Xianyuan family within the hidden clan. A terrifying pillar of light instantly erupted from the back mountain of the Xianyuan family. Moreover, the appearance of this pillar of light immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the Xianyuan family. Even the Xianyuan family head and the many grand elders focused their gaze upon this terrifying pillar of light. Furthermore, even the hidden Xianyuan family experts opened their eyes at this moment. Everyone directed their attention toward that terrifying pillar of light. The Xianyuan family experts who were looking at the pillar of light quickly headed in its direction. Simultaneously, within the ancestral land of the Xianyuan family, one terrifying aura after another began to awaken. Moreover, many of these auras were mixed with death chi. It was as if they were people who had come from the underworld. Following this, one elder after another, emanating death chi, appeared at the location where the Xianyuan family's pillar of light originated. Their eyes were filled with terror. At the same time, several of the elders had a terrifying murderous intent in their eyes. It was as if the Xianyuan family was about to face a massive upheaval. However, just as these elders were looking at the pillar of light before them, 3 rays of light suddenly descended from the sky. These 3 lights then slowly turned their gaze toward the elders of the Xianyuan family before them. The aura emanating from these 3 lights caused the surrounding Dao to tremble. However, the moment these 3 lights appeared, they immediately focused their attention on the pillar of light in front of them. Alas, I didn't expect that after only a few 100,000 years, my Xianyuan family would face another catastrophe. Following this, an elder slowly walked out from one of the 3 lights, and a voice filled with emotion emerged from the figure. His voice was like a streak of darkness within the light, sounding incredibly dead and silent. The last time the old ancestor's prophecy appeared, didn't my Xianyuan family still manage to escape that catastrophe? If anyone dares to harm my Xianyuan family, we will perish together with them. At this moment, Another figure slowly walked out from a different ray of light. This figure had a head of white hair. Although his face carried a hint of vicissitude, he was not as aged as the first figure. Indeed, if anyone wants to destroy my Xianyuan family, then we shall fight them to the death. It is still uncertain who will win or lose. From the last ray of light, a white-robed elder slowly emerged, his face displaying a mix of calmness and fury. However, the aura emanating from him at this moment also caused the surrounding Dao to tremble. We greet the ancient ancestors. The elders who were emanating death, Qi, immediately bowed to the three elders upon seeing them emerge. At the same time, their eyes were filled with reverence. Clearly, they greatly admired these three elders who had appeared from the Xianyuan family. The three elders of the Xianyuan family calmly waved their hands at the crowd of elders present. "You're all old now. Stop bowing back and forth." The elder with the head of white hair spoke with a hint of displeasure, and after speaking, he slowly turned his gaze toward the pillar of light before him. At this moment, the Xianyuan family's pillar of light slowly disappeared. Following this, a golden, dazzling treasure sword appeared beneath the pillar of light. And this golden, dazzling treasure sword was precisely the Xianyuan sword that the Heavenly God Academy feared the most. However, the Xianyuan sword was currently trembling continuously. It was as if the Xianyuan family was about to face a massive change. Artifact Spirit, what massive changes is my Xianyuan family about to face? The white-haired old ancestor of the Xianyuan family slowly stepped forward at this time, speaking while looking at the Xianyuan sword before him. It could be seen that this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was also extremely respectful toward the Xianyuan sword. Heavenly God Academy. The Xianyuan sword was still trembling continuously at this moment. Soon, a golden light emanated from the Xianyuan sword. This golden light directly carved these four large characters into the sky. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family instantly became furious upon seeing this scene. This was because the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family naturally knew of the Heavenly God Academy's existence. And at that time, they also knew the reason why the Xianyuan family had suffered the Heavenly God Academy scheme. Of course, more importantly, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family also knew that the Heavenly God Academy had driven their Xianyuan family's human emperor ancestor out of this world. And the main reason why their Xianyuan family had continuously searched for the possessor of the human emperor fate was precisely because of this. Once the Xianyuan sword returned to the Xianyuan family, it gave a reason that made the Xianyuan family particularly eager to see the possessor of the human emperor fate. It turned out that the possessor of the human emperor fate could sense the whereabouts of their former human emperor ancestor. As long as the possessor of the human emperor fate became a human emperor realm expert, he would have a chance to sense the Xianyuan family's human emperor ancestor, the one with the human emperor fate. At that time, they would naturally be able to find their human emperor ancestor. Xianyuan Longting and the great emperor-level experts of the Xianyuan family also relied on their bloodline to search for their old ancestor. It seems the Heavenly God Academy intends to completely wipe out my Xianyuan family. However, they probably don't know that they aren't that powerful. After all, my Xianyuan family is not as simple as they imagine. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family spoke with some anger at this moment, and after speaking, his gaze slowly drifted toward the Void Realm. It was as if his gaze directly pierced the Void Realm and looked into the Heavenly God Academy. The old ancestors and the grand elders of the Xianyuan family around him began to tremble upon sensing his aura. After all, the aura emanating from him was too terrifying. Since the Heavenly God Academy is targeting my Xianyuan family, this time they target us, they definitely won't launch an attack as directly as last time. After all, the Heavenly God Academy is uncertain whether the people of my Xianyuan family can still use the Xianyuan sword. The old ancestor among the three Xianyuan family old ancestors whose aura was slightly more profound spoke with a frown. They naturally knew the reason why the Heavenly God Academy dared not openly target their Xianyuan family. The primary reason was that the Heavenly God Academy feared the Xianyuan sword of their Xianyuan family. And it was also for this reason that their Xianyuan family had not publicized the news that the Xianyuan sword had returned to the Xianyuan family. Chapter 530 for the excitement of the ancestor of the Xianyuan family and speculation on the motives of the Heavenly God Academy. After hearing their old ancestors' words, the others also reacted, and then they began to silently ponder how Heavenly God Academy planned to deal with their Xianyuan family. After all, the Xianyuan family was not as simple as they imagined. It wouldn't be easy for Heavenly God Academy to confront their Xianyuan family head-on. The dark turmoil is approaching. Is Heavenly God Academy planning to wait for the dark turmoil to arrive before making a move against my Xianyuan family? The white-haired old ancestor of the Xianyuan family asked with a hint of doubt. As an old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, he could naturally sense the impending dark turmoil. The power gap between Heavenly God Academy and their Xianyuan family was not particularly large. Therefore, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family speculated that Heavenly God Academy might use the dark turmoil to fight against their Xianyuan family. After all, if the dark turmoil appeared, the Xianyuan family would definitely take action. If they didn't, how could the Xianyuan sword possess the power of all living beings? Moreover, it was even more important that the Xianyuan family could not stand by and watch the dark turmoil arrive. Impossible. No matter how shameless Heavenly God Academy is, they wouldn't wait until the dark turmoil to fight against my Xianyuan family. If they really did that, then their Heavenly God Academy would be scorned by the entire world. The white-robed old ancestor of the Xianyuan family slowly spoke at this moment, directly refuting the words of the previous old ancestor. After all, if that were truly the case, then the Xianyuan family and the entire world could join forces to act against Heavenly God Academy. After all, the forces of the entire world could not stand by and watch Heavenly God Academy unite with those supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone to unleash the dark turmoil. Furthermore, it was even more important that Heavenly God Academy had its own pride. They would not ally with those supreme beings in the dark Forbidden Zone. What happened in these 10,000 years? The old ancestor who first spoke in the Xianyuan family slowly asked the Xianyuan family's Holy Lord at this time. Because they had been in a deep sleep, they did not know what had happened in the outside world. Therefore, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family now intended to understand what had happened outside, and then see how Heavenly God Academy planned to deal with their Xianyuan family. The family head of the Xianyuan family finally breathed a sigh of relief after hearing his old ancestor's words. From the beginning, he had wanted to report the changes in the outside world to his old ancestors. However, he had no opportunity to interject at first, but now he finally had time to narrate what had happened during this period. Reporting to the old ancestors, in these 10,000 years, there has been no news from Heavenly God Academy. However, a few decades ago, a possessor of the human Emperor Fate appeared in our era. And now, the growth of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate should have reached the Great Saint Realm. At the same time, a possessor of the Red Dragon Fate also appeared some time ago. Next, the family head of the Xianyuan family also told his old ancestors what had happened during this period. At the same time, when he mentioned the human Emperor Fate, the family head of the Xianyuan family had an excited expression on his face. Moreover, the family head of the Xianyuan family also told the old ancestors of the Xianyuan family about the choices he and the Grand Elder of the Xianyuan family had made. As the family head of the Xianyuan family continuously recounted what had happened during this period to his old ancestors, the expressions on the faces of the old ancestors of the Xianyuan family finally changed. At the same time, upon hearing that this era had a possessor of the human Emperor Fate, an excited expression instantly appeared on their faces. They even felt an irresistible urge to seek out this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. So that's how it is. Since a possessor of the human Emperor Fate has appeared in this era, it means that this era is an opportunity for my Xianyuan family. Why didn't you wake me up earlier for such an important matter? The white-haired old ancestor of the Xianyuan family spoke with excitement after hearing the words of the family head of the Xianyuan family, but in the end he glanced at the family head of the Xianyuan family with a look of disappointment. The family head of the Xianyuan family lowered his head helplessly after hearing his words. Although the old ancestors of their Xianyuan family lived longer than ordinary people due to the heritage left by the human emperor, they could even live a second life without reaching the great emperor realm. But how could the family head of the Xianyuan family wake up his old ancestors for such a small matter? Moreover, what was more important was that the family head of the Xianyuan family initially thought he could cultivate this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. But he didn't expect the prophecy of the Xianyuan sword of the Xianyuan family to appear so quickly. If our Xianyuan family can get news of the birth of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate, then Heavenly God Academy must have already received news about the birth of the possessor of the human Emperor Fate long ago. Another old ancestor of the Xianyuan family said with a solemn expression in his eyes at this moment. After all, if their Xianyuan family knew about the appearance of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate, then how could the most mysterious Heavenly God Academy not know this news? Therefore, the current prophecy of the Xianyuan sword should be related to this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. Thinking of this, his brows began to furrow. If that's really the case, then this great calamity is probably truly related to this possessor of the human Emperor Fate, and our Xianyuan family must also support the growth of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. After all, his growth can not only help our Xianyuan family find a human emperor ancestor, but this world also needs a human emperor realm expert to grow up. The white-robed old ancestor of the Xianyuan family also spoke seriously at this moment. The growth of the possessor of the human Emperor Fate could not only help their Xianyuan family, but the growth of this possessor of the human Emperor Fate could also resolve this dark turmoil. Otherwise, this dark turmoil would require their Xianyuan family to take action. At that time, the entire heritage of the Xianyuan family would suffer great losses, and then it would be time for them to contend with Heavenly God Academy. Moreover, although the former Xianyuan human emperor did not know what secret of Heavenly God Academy he discovered, it could be inferred from the fact that the Xianyuan human emperor left the Xianyuan sword to guard the Xianyuan family that the secret of Heavenly God Academy was not as simple as imagined. Of course, the current Xianyuan family also did not know what secret Heavenly God Academy possessed. At the same time, they also did not know why Heavenly God Academy would not allow truly top experts to grow up. After all, Heavenly God Academy was too mysterious. Even for the Heaven Mending Pavilion, their Xianyuan family could understand a thing or two, but they could not understand Heavenly God Academy. Chapter 535: The Purpose of the Xianyuan Family. The complete revival of the Xianyuan family. For this world, only the growth of a human Emperor Realm expert can truly resolve the Supreme Being from the Forbidden Zone. Only when a human Emperor Realm expert appears will the Supreme Being from the Forbidden Zone not dare to launch a dark turmoil. Since the possessor of the human Emperor Fate has appeared, then the Xianyuan family should emerge directly. Moreover, the Heavenly God Academy is likely targeting this possessor of the human Emperor Fate, so our Xianyuan family must find this possessor of the human Emperor Fate as quickly as possible. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family directly issued the order at this moment, and after speaking, his eyes held a hint of anticipation. Evidently, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was also looking forward to seeing what kind of heroic figure the possessor of the human Emperor Fate would be. After all, their own Xianyuan human Emperor ancestor was considered one of the top experts in this world. At the same time, their human Emperor ancestor was also a human Emperor Realm expert who made the entire Forbidden Zone dare not emerge in that era. One must know that the Supreme Being level experts in the Forbidden Zone only fear human Emperor Realm experts. Although great Emperor level experts can also defeat the Supreme Being from the Forbidden Zone. However, for a great Emperor level expert to defeat dozens of Supreme Being level experts is even more difficult than ascending to heaven. After all, these Supreme Being level experts can achieve ultimate sublimation, and at that time, they will also possess the combat power of great Emperor level experts. Therefore, to resolve the Supreme, at least a human Emperor Realm expert is needed. Old Ancestor, we have already dispatched several great Saint-level clansmen to search for the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. At this moment, the family head of the Xianyuan family slowly stepped forward and reported to his old ancestor. However, after speaking, his eyes held a look of doubt, because he found that his great Saint-level clansmen had not yet sent back any news, meaning that his great Saint-level clansmen had not yet found the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. The possessor of the human Emperor Fate inherently possesses a fate that conceals the heavenly Tao, so it is naturally very difficult to find him. However, if my Xianyuan family fully revives, the eyes of the world will be gathered on my Xianyuan family, and at that time, it can also relieve some burden for this possessor of the human Emperor Fate. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family waved his hand after hearing the words of the family head of the Xianyuan family. Then he slowly looked up at the sky and spoke. In fact, the main reason for the Xianyuan family's revival now was to alleviate some pressure on the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. At the same time, it could also make the Supreme Being from the Forbidden Zone turn their attention to the Xianyuan family. Moreover, if the Xianyuan family completely revives, it can also attract the attention of the Heavenly God Academy. At that time, whether it is the Supreme Being from the Forbidden Zone or the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy, their attention will be focused on the Xianyuan family. Then, it will be easier for the possessor of the human Emperor Fate to grow. After all, if the top firepower is attracted by the Xianyuan family, then it will naturally not be particularly difficult for him to grow. What the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family did not know was that the Heavenly God Academy had already noticed Chu Fan, and even now, the Heavenly God Academy had dispatched an alternative path to enlightenment existence to search for Chu Fan. Upon hearing his old ancestor's words, the family head of the Xianyuan family immediately understood, and then he directly revived the entire Xianyuan family according to his old ancestor's instructions. And as the Xianyuan family emerged in a mountain range in the central domain, a small world instantly appeared above the central domain, and this small world emitted a terrifying chi. This was the small world that the Xianyuan human emperor had once opened up. It was also the small world where the Xianyuan family had been hiding all this time. As this small world slowly opened, the Xianyuan family completely emerged in the central domain. At the same time, the aura belonging to the Xianyuan family was completely exposed to everyone's sight. Of course, as the Xianyuan family emerged, those quasi-emperor level experts who were currently fighting in the outer domain also turned their gaze towards the Xianyuan family. Because as quasi-emperor level experts, they naturally sensed the aura of the Xianyuan family. So these quasi-emperor level experts stared at the place where the Xianyuan family emerged with incredible looks in their eyes. They had not expected that their great battle had not yet ended, and the legendary Xianyuan family had already emerged. One must know that the news of the Xianyuan family being forced into reclusion by their old ancestor had naturally reached their ears. Of course, at this moment, it was not only these quasi-emperor level experts who noticed the emergence of the Xianyuan family. Even those unrevived old ancestor among the top forces in the central domain also sensed this. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family to choose to emerge in this era. Could it be that the Xianyuan family has a peerless prodigy who is about to grow up again? In the back mountain of Tianxian Holy Land, in a pitch-black grand hall, many stone coffins stood. At this moment, the lid of one stone coffin was instantly flung open. Then, an old man covered in death qi slowly crawled out of the coffin. His eyes stared at the direction of the Xianyuan family with disbelief. This was one of the foundations of Tianxian Holy Land. At this moment, he also did not expect the Xianyuan family to choose to emerge in this era. At the same time, this foundation of Tianxian Holy Land also speculated whether there was a peerless prodigy in the Xianyuan family who was about to achieve the great emperor realm in this era. Perhaps only this would be worth the Xianyuan family's emergence. Meanwhile, in the direction of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, several quasi-emperor level experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance also turned their gaze towards the Xianyuan family. Has the former overlord, the Xianyuan family, emerged? I wonder if it will affect our Heavenly Dao Alliance's unification of the central domain. Then, a quasi-emperor level old man slowly looked at the direction of the Xianyuan family and spoke, and after speaking, his eyes held a hint of worry. I think they should not affect our Heavenly Dao Alliance's unification of the central domain. After all, the relationship between the Xianyuan family and these forces in the central domain is not particularly friendly, so it is impossible for them to help these forces in the central domain. Another quasi-emperor waved his hand at this moment and spoke. He did not believe that the Xianyuan family would help these top forces in the central domain. After all, they naturally knew about the past great battle between the top forces of the central domain and the Xianyuan family. Another old man also nodded after hearing his words. His guess in his heart was also the same. The Xianyuan family could not possibly help these top forces in the central domain. After all, the relationship between the top forces of the central domain and the Xianyuan family was not particularly friendly to begin with. Chapter 536, The Discovery of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, The Wrath of the Supreme Being of Demon Dragon Lake. Soon, these quasi-emperors of the Heavenly Dao Alliance once again looked toward the direction of their own battle. At this time, they no longer focused on the Xianyuan family. After all, the ones who should be paying attention to the Xianyuan family now were the top forces of the central region, not their Heavenly Dao Alliance. After all, there was no enmity between their Heavenly Dao Alliance and the Xianyuan family, but there was great enmity between the Xianyuan family and these top forces of the central region. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family would choose to revive in this era, but why would they choose to revive now? Is it possible that the Xianyuan family is about to produce a new human emperor realm expert in this era? At this moment, an elder from the Heaven-Mending Pavilion slowly appeared in the back mountains of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, and he spoke while looking thoughtfully in the direction of the Xianyuan family. At the same time, the aura emanating from this elder was extremely mysterious. Clearly, his cultivation had already surpassed the ordinary quasi-emperor realm. Although the emergence of the Xianyuan family surprised us, the Xianyuan family shouldn't have a possessor of the human emperor fate, otherwise they would have emerged much earlier. Another elder beside the first elder slowly spoke at this time. After speaking, he leisurely looked toward the Xianyuan family's direction. However, at this moment, there was not much worry on this elder's face. After all, their Heaven-Mending Pavilion had existed for such a long time, so naturally, they had no need to fear the Xianyuan family. Moreover, and more importantly, the Heaven-Mending Pavilion did not intervene in the last great war against the Xianyuan family, meaning there was no enmity between the Heaven-Mending Pavilion and the Xianyuan family. The emergence of a Xianyuan family is likely closely related to the Heavenly God Academy. A few days ago, I faintly sensed the appearance of a top expert from the Heavenly God Academy. Although I don't know what the Heavenly God Academy is planning, it is definitely highly related to the Xianyuan family. At this time, a middle-aged man carrying a terrifying aura slowly appeared beside the two elders, and he spoke while looking solemnly into the distance. The aura of this middle-aged man had reached the level of an alternative path to enlightenment existence. He was the alternative path to enlightenment existence within the Heaven-Mending Pavilion. He was also the most top expert within the Heaven-Mending Pavilion. More importantly, his face looked extremely youthful. If that is truly the case, then the great war between the Xianyuan family and the Heavenly God Academy will likely not be so simple. After hearing the words of the middle-aged man, one of the elders had a look of shock in his eyes, and then he slowly looked towards the Xianyuan family's direction and spoke. At the same time, he finally understood why the Xianyuan family had emerged in this era. If the Xianyuan family and the Heavenly God Academy truly start a great war, then what should our Heaven-Mending Pavilion do? The other elder spoke somewhat helplessly to the middle-aged man in front of him. Although their Heaven-Mending Pavilion and the Heavenly God Academy were known as the two great top forces of the Central Region, they also understood just how powerful the Heavenly God Academy truly was. Furthermore, if the Heavenly God Academy and the Xianyuan family went to war, should their Heaven-Mending Pavilion stand by and watch the show or assist one side? Although the Xianyuan family has only existed for 1,000,000 years, the Xianyuan family has always protected the living beings of this world, so I lean more towards the Xianyuan family. The Heavenly God Academy, however, is extremely mysterious. Even after millions of years of investigation by our Heaven-Mending Pavilion, we have not uncovered the Heavenly God Academy's true hidden cards. Moreover, and more importantly, through investigations over the past 1,000,000 years, I discovered that a great battle definitely occurred between the Heavenly God Academy and Xianyuan Human Emperor 1,000,000 years ago. After hearing the elder's words, the middle-aged man sighed leisurely and spoke. Although there was no enmity between their Heaven-Mending Pavilion and the Heavenly God Academy, this middle-aged man from the Heaven-Mending Pavilion still leaned towards the Xianyuan family. Because through the Heaven-Mending Pavilion's continuous investigation into the Heavenly God Academy, he found that the Heavenly God Academy was not as simple as imagined. Even the relationship between the former Xianyuan Human Emperor and the Heavenly God Academy was not simple. After the two elders heard the middle-aged man's words, a look of solemnity instantly appeared on their faces, because they had also sensed this strange aura. It could even be said that during their recent explorations, there were many unclear and inexplicable connections between the Heavenly God Academy and those great Emperor-level experts. Furthermore, the disappearance of many great Emperor-level experts was highly related to the Heavenly God Academy. This was also the reason why they began to view the Heavenly God Academy with solemnity. No matter what friction exists between the Xianyuan family and the Heavenly God Academy, our Heaven-Mending Pavilion should first watch the show and see what the Heavenly God Academy's final plan truly is. The middle-aged man slowly sighed once more at this time and said. After speaking, he leisurely turned around and returned to his divine source to seal himself. For him, if he didn't seal himself, his life force would continuously drain away, even though his cultivation had reached the level of alternative path to enlightenment. The other two elders also sighed and then returned to their respective seals. Nevertheless, they had made their own choices. At this time, all the top forces in the Central Region looked toward the direction of the Xianyuan family. At the very least, these top forces possess quasi-emperor-level existences, so naturally, they also sensed the emergence of the Xianyuan family at this time. At the same time, these top forces also began to speculate why the Xianyuan family chose to emerge in this era. Demon Dragon Lake. This is one of the great forbidden zones of the Central Region. Deep within Demon Dragon Lake at this moment, several supreme being-level divine thoughts appeared, and their gazes were all directed toward the Xianyuan family. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family would choose to emerge in this era, and they chose to emerge before we even initiated the dark turmoil. Do they think they can drive us back into the forbidden zone this time? A Supreme spoke with fury in his eyes. At the same time, he wished he could utterly crush the Xianyuan family. After all, the Xianyuan family had always been obstructing the Supreme being from the forbidden zone. Furthermore, several great Emperor-level experts of the Xianyuan family had even slain several Supreme being-level existences. Among them, 4 Supremes from their Demon Dragon Lake were killed, 3 of whom were slain by great Emperor-level experts of the Xianyuan family. The other one was slain by a great Emperor who had a close relationship with the Xianyuan family. This was why Demon Dragon Lake held such a deep grudge against the Xianyuan family. The state between Demon Dragon Lake and the Xianyuan family could be described as endless enmity. Chapter 537, The Excited Heavenly God Academy. The Heaven-Mending Stone shows its power once again. As the Supreme's angry voice echoed, another Supreme also glared angrily in the direction of the Xianyuan family. However, this Supreme did not speak at this moment. Instead, he merely glanced meaningfully in the direction of the Xianyuan family before retracting his gaze. The other Supremes slowly withdrew their divine thought. After all, it was not yet time for them to emerge. More importantly, the path to immortality had not yet appeared, so they naturally wouldn't choose to waste their lives by emerging now. As all the Supreme's divine thought retreated, Demon Dragon Lake once again became calm. Of course, the emergence of a Xianyuan family also attracted the attention of the other 3 restricted areas. However, the other 3 restricted areas at this time made a similar choice to Demon Dragon Lake. They did not choose to engage the Xianyuan family. At the same time, they were all waiting for the path to immortality to appear. Therefore, they naturally wouldn't choose to act directly. Of course, compared to the top forces in the central domain speculating about the Xianyuan family, Heavenly God Academy was a bit calmer. After all, Heavenly God Academy had long known that a possessor of the human Emperor Fate would appear in this epic. So, they were naturally very calm at this moment. They had long anticipated that the Xianyuan family would emerge in this epic. After all, the possessor of the human Emperor Fate was extremely important to the Xianyuan family. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family to emerge so early. They really couldn't hold back. An old man in Heavenly God Academy slowly spoke, but as he said this, a hint of excitement appeared on his face. Clearly, this old man from Heavenly God Academy was also very excited about the Xianyuan family's emergence. At first, we were thinking of how to make their Xianyuan family emerge, but unexpectedly, the Xianyuan family has emerged directly. It seems they want to attract our attention and that of the Supremes, then secretly allow the possessor of the human Emperor Fate to grow. Another old man had already guessed the Xianyuan family's purpose in doing so, and he looked in the direction of the Xianyuan family with a glint in his eyes. Although the Xianyuan family wants to attract our attention, what he doesn't know is that our people are already on their way to the Eastern Domain. Perhaps it won't be long before the Xianyuan family hears the news of the possessor of the human Emperor Fate appearing in our Heavenly God Academy. Another old man said excitedly, looking in the direction of the Xianyuan family. After he finished speaking, the excitement in his eyes could not be erased. Of course, the expressions in the eyes of many old ancestors in Heavenly God Academy at this time were not much different. It could be said that with the emergence of the Xianyuan family, the entire central domain began to stir. After all, the Xianyuan family was once the truly top force in the central domain. Among these people, even the current top forces could not compare to the Xianyuan family. Even Azure Dragon City, which was in the midst of a great battle, felt some confusion after hearing the news. But this only made the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance and the Secmaster of the Heaven Mending Pavilion want to resolve the battlefield quickly. Outside Azure Dragon City, the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance looked at Azure Dragon City with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. The bodies of the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance outside Azure Dragon City had already reached several million, and the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance began to grow anxious. After hearing about the emergence of the Xianyuan family, he started to worry. After all, who knew if the Xianyuan family would support the Heaven Mending Pavilion and other forces after their emergence? This is truly troublesome. I didn't expect the Xianyuan family to choose to emerge at this critical moment, but it shouldn't have too much of an impact on our Heavenly Dao Alliance, right? Then, the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance slowly spoke. After speaking, he slowly turned his gaze towards the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion above Azure Dragon City. In fact, over 1 million soldiers of their opposing allied army had also fallen. It could be said that the bodies on the battlefield now could form several mountains. However, due to the suppression of the Heaven Mending Stone, the Heavenly Dao Alliance was currently unable to retrieve all of its bodies. This was also why the number of bodies from the Heavenly Dao Alliance kept increasing. On the side of Azure Dragon City, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion looked at the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance below with a hint of worry. At this moment, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion was also somewhat worried that the Xianyuan family would help the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance after its emergence. After all, no matter what, the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was a possessor of the Red Dragon Fate, so he also had a chance to become a human Emperor realm existence. Who knew if the Xianyuan family would help the alliance leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance? Thus, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion's face also showed a sense of urgency. However, the dean of the Celestial God Academy beside him showed no expression. At this moment, he appeared completely relaxed. It was as if the emergence of the Xianyuan family had no effect on him. Subsequently, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion directly activated the Heaven Mending Stone in the sky. As the colorful radiance emitted from the Heaven Mending Stone fell upon the soldiers engaged in the great battle below, the injuries on the soldiers of their side also began to slowly recover. Even arms that had been completely destroyed by the battle slowly reattached themselves. as the power from the heaven-mending stone continuously infused into the bodies of these soldiers. Their bodies slowly recovered. After completing this, the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion's face showed a pale expression. Clearly, using the heaven-mending stone was also somewhat strenuous for him. However, he had no other choice at this moment. To quickly end this great battle, he had to eliminate all the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance before him. The Dean of the Celestial God Academy beside him saw this scene, and a hint of fervor flashed in his eyes. Clearly, the Dean of the Celestial God Academy also felt some fervor for the heaven-mending stone, but at this moment he naturally dared not lay hands on the heaven-mending stone. After all, if he were to lay hands on the heaven-mending stone now, their Heavenly God Academy would have to face the combined forces of the Xianyuan family and the Heaven-Mending Pavilion. Although the Heaven-Mending Pavilion's strength was not as powerful as their Heavenly God Academies, the Heaven-Mending Pavilion also had alternative path to enlightenment existences. As the Heaven-Mending Stone healed the injuries on these armies, the allied armies also erupted with an even more terrifying chi. Then, without any surprise, they charged towards the army of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Although the army of the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not fear death, when facing armies whose chi was relatively stronger than their own, they could only helplessly fall. Subsequently, the army of the Heavenly Dao Alliance also began to be suppressed by the allied army. Chapter 538, The Heaven-Mending Stone Unleashes Its Power, the mysterious leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. The sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, seeing the morale of his army greatly boosted, finally revealed a relaxed expression on his face. Subsequently, he once again injected all his power into the Heaven-Mending Stone. At the same time, the Heaven-Mending Stone continuously emitted light. Terrifying power continued to emanate from the Heaven-Mending Stone. As the power from the Heaven-Mending Stone continuously flowed into the bodies of the armies below, these armies were constantly improving their strength. Of course, this increase in strength was only momentary. As long as the power from the Heaven-Mending Stone continued to be injected into their bodies, the power within their bodies would be continuously enhanced. However, once the power from the Heaven-Mending Stone ceased, the power within their bodies would naturally dissipate. The people of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion naturally understood this, and so several Saint King-level experts from the Heaven-Mending Pavilion each poured all their power into the Heaven-Mending Stone. Immediately after, the Heaven-Mending Stone instantly emitted an even more terrifying five-colored radiance. These five-colored rays of light continuously healed the injuries on the soldiers of the allied armies on the battlefield below. Naturally, the injuries on the disciples of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, in particular, were directly restored. Moreover, the chi of the disciples of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion had been comprehensively enhanced. After all, they were members of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, and the cultivation technique they cultivated had a strong connection to the Heaven-Mending Stone. Therefore, the chi emanating from everyone was naturally soaring. The Dean of the Celestial God Academy, seeing this scene, had a peculiar glint in his eyes. At the same time, he was constantly pondering the changes on the battlefield, because as the light emitted from the Heaven-Mending Stone continuously replenished the soldiers of the allied army, the strength of the soldiers of the allied army would increase, and the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance would be suppressed. This situation was not what the Celestial God Academy wished to see. Thus, the Dean of the Celestial God Academy was constantly thinking about how to break this deadlock. After all, their Celestial God Academy hoped for a mutually destructive battle between the Heavenly Dao Alliance and the top expert forces of the Central Region. At that time, their Celestial God Academy could reap the benefits. However, the current situation had far exceeded his imagination. At the same time, the Dean of the Celestial God Academy finally understood how powerful the Heaven-Mending Stone truly was. Now, the Dean of the Celestial God Academy desired even more to bring the Heaven-Mending Stone into the Celestial God Academy. This would undoubtedly greatly enhance the strength of the Celestial God Academy. Just as the Dean of the Celestial God Academy was still contemplating how to break this stalemate, the Tiandao Alliance leader on the Heavenly Dao Alliance's side also looked with a hint of anger at the army below the Heaven-Mending Stone. The Tiandao Alliance leader had not expected the Heaven-Mending Stone to bring such a massive boost to these armies. However, it was clear that there was not much shock in the eyes of the Tiandao Alliance leader at this moment. He was clearly not flustered by the Heaven-Mending Stone's ability to enhance the strength of these armies. At this rate, the number of my Heavenly Dao Alliance's armies will probably be directly reduced by several million. An elder beside the Tiandao Alliance leader slowly looked at the situation of the soldiers in the center of the battlefield and said leisurely. However, it was clear that there was no worry on the face of this elder from the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Instead, He watched the battlefield with great calm, as if the lives of these soldiers held no meaning to him. Now is not the time to act. When they think they could defeat my Heavenly Dao Alliance's soldiers, then my Heavenly Dao Alliance will show these top expert forces of the Central Region the true foundation of my Heavenly Dao Alliance. The Tiandao Alliance leader nodded after hearing the elder's words, then leisurely turned his gaze towards the center of the battlefield. There was no ripple in his eyes. At this moment, the Quasi-Emperor level experts in the outer battlefield naturally saw this scene. Therefore, many Quasi-Emperor level experts from the top expert forces of the Central Region had a smile on their faces. However, when they looked at the Quasi-Emperor level experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, there was a hint of surprise in their eyes. Because at this moment, there was no expression in the eyes of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's Quasi-Emperor level experts. It was as if the demise of these Heavenly Dao Alliance armies had no impact on these Quasi-Emperor level experts of their Heavenly Dao Alliance. Of course, the demise of these armies naturally had no great impact on these Quasi-Emperor level experts. It was just that after these armies fell, the outcome of this great battle would quickly become apparent. After all, if all the Heavenly Dao Alliance's armies were to fall, then the Heavenly Dao Alliance would not be able to defeat the combined armies of the top expert forces of the Central Region. Therefore, the demeanor of these Quasi-Emperor level experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance surprised the Quasi-Emperor level experts from the top expert forces of the Central Region. However, no matter how surprised they were, they still needed to continuously unite to resist these Quasi-Emperor level experts of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. As half a day quickly passed, during this half-day period, due to the blessing of the Heaven-Mending Stone, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's armies suffered millions of casualties. One must know, this was millions of armies. However, at this moment, the Tiandao Alliance leader seemed to show no panic. Instead, he looked at the sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion with a calm gaze. This greatly surprised the sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, and the dean of the Celestial God Academy, who was beside the sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion, also had an elusive look in his eyes, constantly staring at the battlefield below. Although the sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion was very surprised at this moment, he naturally did not intend to let go of such a good opportunity. So now, the army below was still constantly slaughtering the Heavenly Dao Alliance's army. As the Heavenly Dao Alliance's army continued to fall, the Tiandao Alliance leader finally reacted. He leaped high into the air. At this moment, he was like a true dragon descending upon the world. At the same time, a crimson light emanated from his body. This crimson light made him appear exceptionally dazzling. At the same time, all the soldiers and top expert on the entire battlefield looked towards the Tiandao Alliance leader. But the Tiandao Alliance leader had no intention of paying attention to them. The crimson light on his body instantly formed a giant crimson dragon behind him. This was the red dragon of his red dragon fate. The moment this red dragon appeared, the entire battlefield felt a terrifying pressure. The sect master of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion at this moment looked at the Tiandao Alliance leader in the sky with a puzzled expression. At the same time, he was also continuously urging the Heaven-Mending Stone, making it resist the chi emanating from the Tiandao Alliance leader. Chapter 539, The Crimson Dragon Gem Unleashes Its Power. The helpless leader of the Heaven-Mending Pavilion. Even the dean of the Celestial God Academy looked at the Tiandao Alliance leader in the sky with a hint of confusion in its eyes. Clearly, the dean of the Celestial God Academy also did not know what the Tiandao Alliance leader in the sky was planning. However, at this moment, the dean of the Celestial God Academy was indeed somewhat looking forward to the Tiandao Alliance leader's performance. After all, the dean of the Celestial God Academy had initially been thinking about how to destroy the power of the Heaven-Mending Stone, as the power brought by the Heaven-Mending Stone was too formidable. This made the current battlefield quite unbalanced. But since the Tiandao Alliance leader had already appeared, the Tiandao Alliance leader probably had its own method to deal with the Heaven-Mending Stone. Thus, the dean of the Celestial God Academy looked at the Tiandao Alliance leader in the sky with anticipation in its eyes. At this moment, the Tiandao Alliance leader calmly scanned the army below. Immediately afterward, the blood-red aura emanating from its body instantly covered the entire sky. However, the moment the blood-red aura on its body was continuously released, a terrifying suction force also appeared on the Heaven-Mending Stone, constantly absorbing the blood-red aura from its body, as if intending to drain all the aura from its body. Sensing this, the Tiandao Alliance leader also showed some surprise in its eyes. It had not expected the Heaven-Mending Stone to possess such terrifying power. At the same time, the Tiandao Alliance leader became increasingly excited about the Heaven Mending Stone. After all, if it could obtain the Heaven Mending Stone, it might be able to successfully transform its Red Dragon fate into True Dragon fate. It must be known that there was still a gap between Red Dragon fate and True Dragon fate. But if it wanted to truly transform its fate into Human Emperor fate, that would be simply wishful thinking. If it were truly possible to do so, then the Heaven Mending Pavilion should have long possessed an existence with Human Emperor fate. Following this, the excitement in the Tiandao Alliance leader's eyes slowly faded. The next second, the red dragon behind it instantly soared into the air. As this red dragon soared, a blood-red light also flew out from the palace of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. This blood-red light flew directly above the red dragon's head. Then, terrifying blood-red rays of light continuously emanated from this blood-red light. At the same time, this blood-red light finally revealed its original form. It turned out to be a blood-red gem embedded on the head of the red dragon. This caused the blood-red light on the red dragon's body to continuously radiate, and the blood-red aura flowing from this blood-red gem caused the entire sky to turn blood-red at this moment. Furthermore, and more importantly, the blood-red aura flowing from this blood-red gem was continuously heading toward the Heaven Mending Stone. The next second, these faint blood-red light spots continuously landed on the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. On the bodies of the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance who had already fallen, signs of vitality began to slowly appear. As the aura of vitality began to emanate from the bodies of these soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, their broken arms or legs also began to slowly grow back. Subsequently, the aura of vitality began to appear on their bodies. As the blood-red gem in the sky continued to emit blood-red light, the soldiers who had died in the Heavenly Dao Alliance slowly came back to life. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they looked at the Tiandao Alliance leader in the sky, who resembled a demon god. Subsequently, these revived soldiers immediately rejoined the battlefield. After rejoining the battle, they fought fiercely against the allied soldiers using reckless tactics. After all, now that the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance knew they possessed an immortal body, why should they fear the allied soldiers? However, what these soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance did not know was that upon their resurrection, a red dragon totem appeared on their necks. Moreover, and more importantly, this red dragon totem was constantly connected to the red dragon in the sky. It was as if all their lives were bestowed upon them by the red dragon in the sky. As the red dragon and the blood-red gem in the sky continuously radiated terrifying brilliance, the Heavenly Dao Alliance army below was constantly recovering. It could be said that in just a moment, the majority of the millions of dead soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance had been resurrected, and this number was still increasing. In just an instant, millions of deceased soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance were resurrected. Upon seeing this scene, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion instantly showed a look of disbelief in its eyes, because it had not expected the Heavenly Dao Alliance to possess such a trump card. It must be known that even the Heaven Mending Stone could not resurrect the already deceased. Yet, this blood-red gem in the sky could resurrect dead enemies. How could the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion dare to believe what it was seeing with its own eyes? Subsequently, it quickly activated its Heaven Mending Stone, directly using the Heaven Mending Stone to deduce the origin of the blood-red gem above its head. Crimson Dragon Gem. So it is the true Crimson Dragon Gem of the Red Dragon Fate. Furthermore, it is not fully resurrecting these deceased people. It is merely giving them an extra half-month of vitality. The Heaven Mending Stone quickly transmitted the legend and origin of this blood-red gem into the mind of the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion. Therefore, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion instantly had information about this blood-red gem in its mind. It turned out that this blood-red gem was named the Crimson Dragon Gem. It was also the greatest foundation of the owner of the Red Dragon Fate. Of course, finding the Crimson Dragon Gem was not a simple matter. It could even be said that among hundreds of owners of the Red Dragon Fate, not necessarily one would find the Crimson Dragon Gem. But it had not expected that the owner of the Red Dragon Fate in this epic had actually found the Crimson Dragon Gem. The Crimson Dragon Gem could, relying on the owner of the Red Dragon Fate, increase the vitality of its subordinates for half a month. Furthermore, during this half-month period, this army would be in an undying and indestructible state. As long as they died, the Crimson Dragon Gem could resurrect them again. Of course, resurrection also required significant conditions. For example, the Tiandao Alliance leader resurrecting the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance required the utilization of the Heavenly Dao Alliance's luck. However, The Heavenly Dao Alliance's luck was currently capable of supporting the continuous resurrection of the soldiers of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. After all, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's luck was now considered the most supreme luck in the entire central domain. Thinking of this, the sect master of the Heaven Mending Pavilion showed a hint of helplessness in its eyes. It had not expected that while their Heaven Mending Pavilion possessed a treasure like the Heaven Mending Stone, the Heavenly Dao Alliance also possessed a treasure like the Crimson Dragon Gem. Chapter 540 System Mission, Tianjizi's Calculation. Following the activation of the Crimson Dragon Gem, the Great War between the Heavenly Dao Alliance and the Allied forces resumed. Moreover, because the Heavenly Dao Alliance's army was constantly being revived by the Crimson Dragon Gem, the subsequent battle became deadlocked once again. However, the Allied forces also possessed the Heaven Mending Stone, so their combat power far exceeded that of the Heavenly Dao Alliance. Therefore, the speed at which the Allied forces were falling naturally could not compare to the Heavenly Dao Alliance. However, since the Heavenly Dao Alliance possessed the Crimson Dragon Gem, which could bring their army back from the dead, the subsequent fighting was extremely difficult for the Allied forces. Just as the battle in the central region was fiercely contested, Chu Fan, who is currently in the Great Xia Empire in the eastern region, received a mission issued by the system. Ding! Detected an imminent enemy attack. System mission activated. Slay the invading enemy. Reward: 2 top-tier summoning cards, 5 Great Sage summoning cards. Chu Fan fell silent as he looked at his system mission. He had not expected the system to issue this task to him at this time. What was more important was that the reward for this system mission surprised him slightly. System: what kind of existence can a top-tier summoning card summon? However, Chu Fan still looked at the mission in the system space and spoke with some surprise, as this was the first time he had seen a top-tier summoning card. One must know that the cards initially rewarded to him were either standard-level summoning cards or unlimited summoning cards. But he never expected a top-tier summoning card to appear now. He believed that the top-tier summoning card would definitely not be weaker than the Great Sage summoning card. After all, among the summoning cards rewarded this time, there was the Great Sage summoning card in addition to the top-tier summoning card. Ding! The top-tier summoning card can summon figures whose realm is higher than the host. Since the host cultivation is currently in the Quasi-Emperor realm, the figures summoned by the top-tier summoning card will have a cultivation level of at least the Quasi-Emperor realm, and may even summon figures above the Quasi-Emperor. Right after Chu Fan finished speaking, the system's voice rang out in his mind, and at the same time, the system's voice explained the limitations of the figures summoned by the top-tier summoning card. After hearing the system's explanation, Chu Fan instantly became excited. If that were truly the case, then the 2 rewarded top-tier summoning cards could summon 2 top-tier figures. Moreover, it might even be possible to summon existences who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. He just did not know if it could summon great Emperor-level existences. However, since the reward is so generous, the enemies this time shouldn't be too weak. Subsequently, Chu Fan slowly looked into the distance, his eyes carrying a hint of curiosity. He wanted to see who exactly dared to invade his Great Xia Empire. Just as Chu Fan was guessing who intended to invade his Great Xia Empire, the Heavenly Secret Master was seen walking toward Chu Fan in a hurry. At the same time, his eyes held a look of worry. Did the Imperial Advisor calculate that enemies are coming? The Heavenly Secret Master was currently the Imperial Advisor of the Great Xia Empire. Chu Fan looked at the Heavenly Secret Master's arrival and asked him curiously. The Heavenly Secret Master was, after all, the contemporary successor of the Tianji Pavilion, and his calculation techniques were extremely heaven-defying. Therefore, Chu Fan believed that the Heavenly Secret Master must have already calculated the identity of the invading enemies. I didn't expect the Emperor to already know. That's right. Just now, this old minister calculated that 2 terrifying auras are constantly approaching the Great Xia Empire. They should be existences who have achieved the alternative path to enlightenment or are of the Supreme Being level. What's more important is that they come bearing hostility. The Heavenly Secret Master also did not expect Chu Fan to know so early, so he spoke with a solemn expression. Because according to the calculations of the Heavenly Secret Master felt that the ones appearing in the Great Xia Empire this time should be existences who have achieved the alternative path to enlightenment or are of the Supreme Being level. However, there are only a few existences who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment or were of the Supreme Being level in this world. Therefore, the Heavenly Secret Master did not know where these experts had come from this time. I didn't expect the enemies this time to be Supreme Beings or those who have achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. It seems the enemies this time are not as simple as we imagined. Although Chu Fan felt that the enemies this time were not as simple as imagined the moment the mission appeared, he still did not expect them to be Supreme Beings or those who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. One must know that whether they were Supreme Beings or those who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment, they far exceeded quasi-emperor level existences. Therefore, the enemies this time could easily wipe out any top-tier power. After all, even if a top-tier power possessed an ultimate emperor weapon, it would still be extremely difficult for them to deal with two supreme beings or two existences who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. According to the Heavenly Secrets calculation, these two enemies should be arriving in the eastern region soon. After hearing Chu Fan's words, he slowly cupped his hands toward Chu Fan again, and after speaking, his eyes still held a look of worry. If that is the case, then let Xuan Ying and the Great Accomplishment Sacred Body make a trip. Chu Fan spoke slowly after hearing the Heavenly Secret Master's words. At the same time, there was no sign of worry on his face. After all, their Great Xia Empire currently possessed three existences who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. However, the Son of Heaven was left by him inside Chang'an City, guarding it. Although the enemies this time might be two supreme beings or two existences who had achieved the alternative path to enlightenment. But he believed that the Great Accomplishment Sacred Body and the other person could resolve the issue. After hearing Chu Fan's words, the Heavenly Secret Master respectfully cupped his hands and then slowly withdrew. Meanwhile, the Great Accomplishment Sacred Body and Xuaning naturally also received Chu Fan's order. The two then immediately turned into two streaks of light and headed into the distance. The direction they were heading was precisely the direction from which the two top experts were coming. Of course, after the two left, the Heavenly Secret Master also followed behind them toward the place where the battle was about to occur, because the Heavenly Secret Master also needed to confirm which faction these two belonged to. As the Imperial Advisor of the Great Xia Empire, the Heavenly Secret Master naturally dared not underestimate these enemies. Just as Chang'an City dispatched the Great Accomplishment Sacred Body and the other person, a huge fissure suddenly appeared in the Void Realm at the edge of the eastern region. Subsequently, two old men walked out of the fissure. The moment the two old men appeared, the chi radiating from them caused the surrounding Dao to tremble. The two of them were like true Great Emperor-level experts, invincible in this world. Is this the territory of the nation established by that possessor of the human emperor fate? As expected of the possessor of the human emperor fate, the eastern region now is probably comparable to the former central region. One old man felt the terrifying spiritual chi around him, and a look of shock appeared in his eyes. He had not expected the territory of the nation established by the human emperor fate to possess such frightening spiritual power. Chapter 541, the powerful figures from the Heavenly God Academy arrive in the eastern region, and the great completion holy body shocks the two. After all, according to their calculations, although Chu Fan, the possessor of the human emperor fate, had already grown to the great saint level, even if there was an alternative path to enlightenment existence by Chu Fan's side, the time he had taken to grow was still too short. So the current Great Xia should only be at the level of a heavenly dynasty. It fundamentally could not reach the level of an empire. However, the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy who had just appeared here instantly sensed the luck of the Great Xia Empire. It could be said that the Great Xia Empire had already surpassed an ordinary empire. Even those empires in the central region could not compare to the current Great Xia Empire. This instantly made this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy feel incredulous. Fortunately, we acted quickly. Otherwise, if we truly allowed this possessor of the human emperor fate to grow up, he would probably become the next Xianyuan human emperor. The elderly man beside him, who was wearing a purple long robe, also carried a look of solemnity on his face at this moment. At the same time, the solemn expression on his face slowly transformed into one of relief. He was very glad about the choice their Heavenly God Academy had made. If Chu Fan were allowed to continue growing, then perhaps their Heavenly God Academy would once again face a Xianyuan human emperor. One must know that the former Xianyuan human emperor had caused the foundation of their Heavenly God Academy to be reduced by more than half. Moreover, more importantly, the former Xianyuan human emperor had made it impossible for the true top-tier experts of their Heavenly God Academy to recover. It was also because the Xianyuan human emperor had injured the creator of their Heavenly God Academy, who is still currently in slumber. If Chu Fan were to grow up, his strength would probably be comparable to that of the former Xianyuan human emperor. In that case, what would greet their Heavenly God Academy would be the next Xianyuan human emperor. Furthermore, who knew whether this possessor of the human emperor fate would find the former Xianyuan human emperor? Although a human emperor realm expert could only live for a few tens of thousands of years at most, the Heavenly God Academy did not believe that a famous figure like the Xianyuan human emperor would perish. After all, their Heavenly God Academy possessed the secret of longevity, let alone the Xianyuan human emperor who was driven out of this universe. Perhaps the current Xianyuan human emperor has already found the secret of longevity, and he is currently looking for a way to return to this universe. Although they were extremely wary of the former Xianyuan human emperor, as long as they completely cleared that Dao path and completely finished the plan of their Heavenly God Academy, the creator of their Heavenly God Academy would become a true long-lived being. That is, the legendary immortal. Even if the Xianyuan human emperor returned then, they would not be afraid. It's just that I don't know whether this possessor of the human emperor fate can draw out the entire Xianyuan family this time. After all, the Xianyuan family might still possess a great emperor-level expert. Although the Xianyuan family has not mastered the secret of longevity, they should still be able to make this great emperor-level expert fall into slumber. The elderly man of the Heavenly God Academy, who spoke first slowly, opened his mouth again at this moment, a hint of solemnity in his eyes as he spoke. Because if the great emperor-level expert within the Heavenly God Academy was truly still alive, it would be somewhat difficult for their Heavenly God Academy to resolve the Xianyuan family. Perhaps supreme and even alternative path to enlightenment experts could be created within their Heavenly God Academy. But great emperor-level experts are very difficult to create. After all, aside from reaching the great emperor realm in strength, a great emperor-level expert also needs to possess luck. Otherwise, how could their Heavenly God Academy have taken a liking to Xianyuan Howren back then? Most importantly, the luck on Xianyuan Howren's body could support him in achieving a breakthrough to the great emperor realm. Of course, even so, alternative path to enlightenment experts rarely appear. In fact, in the past tens of millions of years, the entire Heavenly God Academy has only seen the appearance of a few alternative path to enlightenment existences. Furthermore, these alternative path to enlightenment existences are the foundation of their Heavenly God Academy. More importantly, many of them were slaughtered by the former Xianyuan human emperor. Moreover, the strength of the Xianyuan human emperor's former followers was not weak either. It's just that the current Heavenly God Academy is unable to find the whereabouts of the Xianyuan human emperor's former followers. They seem to have completely vanished between this heaven and earth. Of course, some followers were driven out of this universe along with the Xianyuan human emperor. Z, the elderly woman, frowned after hearing his words and remained silent. Afterward, the two hurried in the direction of Chang'an. Of course, the two only took a few steps before sensing two terrifying auras. Immediately afterward, the two looked with incredulity at the two figures standing in front of them. One of the figures radiated a golden light. Upon closer inspection, it could be seen that this golden light was actually golden chi and blood energy. That is to say, the terrifying aura emanating from this figure was released by his chi and blood energy. Great accomplishment, archaic sacred body. The two elderly men of the Heavenly God Academy exchanged glances upon seeing this scene and instantly guessed the physique of the middle-aged man radiating golden chi and blood energy. However, this also filled the eyes of the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy with incredulity. This was because the archaic sacred body could not truly grow in this era. They needed to undergo a heavenly tribulation after achieving a breakthrough to the entering saint realm. And this heavenly tribulation was fundamentally a situation of certain death. Therefore, the archaic sacred body in this era should not be able to grow up. However, the possessor of the archaic sacred body in front of them had actually refined the archaic sacred body to the level of major achievement. One must know that the archaic sacred body of major achievement was an existence that could fight a great emperor-level expert. Even for existences like them, who had attained the alternative path to enlightenment, defeating the archaic sacred body of major achievement was not so easy. What's more, the aura of this great accomplishment sacred body in front of them had also reached the level of an alternative path to enlightenment existence, meaning that neither of them alone could possibly be the opponent of this great accomplishment sacred body. At the same time, they naturally sensed the other young man holding a battle spear. The moment they saw this young man, they guessed his identity, because this young man had, after all, appeared in the central region before. As the peak of the top forces in the central region, the Heavenly God Academy naturally had information regarding this young man, Chuan of the underworld. Subsequently, the expressions of the two became even more solemn, even turning ugly. They had originally thought that this time they would only face Chuan, who held the long spear, but they did not expect that there was also a great accomplishment sacred body here. Moreover, more importantly, the current strength of this great accomplishment sacred body had actually reached the level of an alternative path to enlightenment existence. That is to say, their plan would completely fail. Furthermore, after the failure of their plan this time, the Xianyuan family would certainly react. By then, they would no longer have the chance to attack this possessor of the human emperor fate again. Chapter 542, A Great Battle is Imminent, the terrifying great accomplishment, Holy Body. It could even be said that both of them were now starting to feel shocked by this possessor of the human emperor fate. So, the emperor was talking about you too. I thought it was some kind of existence, but I didn't expect it to just be two alternative paths to enlightenment existences. Why aren't you staying in your own factions, barely surviving, instead of coming to my eastern region to seek death? Chuaning looked at the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy before him, and spoke slowly, but his voice carried a hint of playful mockery. At the same time, the long spear in his hand trembled slightly, as if wanting to completely slay these two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy right here. At this moment, a hint of killing intent also appeared on the face of the great accomplishment sacred body beside him. After all, since he was summoned, he had not yet truly fought a major battle against anyone. Therefore, he naturally wanted to see what kind of trash these people in front of him were. Although we underestimated the power behind Chu Fan, do you think the two of you alone can slay us? The purple-robed old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy slowly stepped forward and looked at the great accomplishment sacred body and the other man, speaking with a look of anger in his eyes after finishing his sentence. He had not expected the two people before him to look down on him so much. Although the great accomplishment sacred body was indeed tyrannical, they were still alternative path to enlightenment existences. After all, why would we need to join forces to kill you two? I alone am enough. After hearing the words of the purple-robed old ancestor, an expression of excitement instantly appeared on the face of the great accomplishment sacred body, and immediately, the terrifying power of chi and blood erupting from him caused the entire sky to shake violently. At the same time, the terrifying power of chi and blood on his body continued to spread outward. A golden Dao power instantly appeared beneath his feet. He appeared as if he were the true master beneath this sky. The 10,000 Dao in the sky also began to tremble at this moment. It was as if the great accomplishment sacred body could crush the 10,000 Dao with his power alone. This was the abnormal prowess of the great accomplishment sacred body reaching the major achievement stage. Immediately afterward, he looked at the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy before him, his eyes filled with battle intent. I'll leave those two to you. I'll watch the battle array from the side. Chuaning naturally understood the great accomplishment sacred body's intentions when he saw this, so he slowly put away his long spear. He instantly appeared 10,000 meters away. Then, with a calm gaze, he looked toward the great accomplishment sacred body. Meanwhile, the great accomplishment sacred body, his eyes filled with terrifying aura, charged toward the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy before him. At the same time, a golden Dao instantly appeared beneath his feet. This golden Dao instantly enveloped the entire sky, and the golden fist of the great accomplishment sacred body struck mercilessly toward the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. When the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy saw this scene, their eyes were instantly filled with rage. Originally, these two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy were prepared to deal with two alternative paths to enlightenment existences from the Great Xia Empire, but they hadn't expected the Great Xia Empire to only send out one alternative path to enlightenment existence. Although this alternative path to enlightenment existence was a great accomplishment sacred body, such an action clearly showed a lack of regard for their Heavenly God Academy. This instantly infuriated the two old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. One of the old ancestor instantly produced a long spear in his hand. The long spear was emitting a terrifying oppressive might. This oppressive might seemed capable of completely piercing through this world. More importantly, the long spear in his hand instantly transformed into a ray of light and shot toward the great accomplishment sacred body. The other old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy produced an immortal sword in his hand. Naturally, his immortal sword also emitted a terrifying sword radiance. Immediately afterward, he swung his sword toward the sky. The terrifying sword light seemed capable of completely splitting the entire world in half. However, the moment his terrifying sword light collided with the power of chi and blood from the great accomplishment sacred body, it was completely swallowed up. The power of chi and blood of the great accomplishment sacred body seemed capable of devouring all things in heaven and earth. After devouring the sword light, the great accomplishment sacred body's fist continued to descend toward the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. The next second, his golden fist directly struck the long spear in the hand of this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. The moment the terrifying golden fist collided with the long spear, a terrifying crack instantly appeared in the entire sky. At the same time, this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy fully felt the terrifying power surging continuously toward his body. The next second, his hands holding the long spear began to tremble incessantly. He was immediately forced back by this power. Then, transforming into a ray of light, he violently crashed into the ground behind him. A massive, deep pit instantly appeared on the ground. When viewed from above, the deep pit was clearly a giant fist print. At this moment, the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, holding the immortal sword, was naturally stunned by this sight. Although they knew from the start that the great accomplishment Sacred Body strength would definitely not be weak. But he hadn't expected the great accomplishment Sacred Body to so easily send an alternative path attainment expert flying. One must know that the strength of this alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of their Heavenly God Academy was not much weaker than that of a great emperor. Yet he was directly struck into the earth by a single move. This made him feel incredible. However, the great accomplishment Sacred Body at this moment did not leave him any time to think. An even more terrifying aura emanated from the great accomplishment Sacred Body. The next second, his golden fist, without any hesitation, struck toward the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, holding the immortal sword. The great accomplishment Sacred Body inherently adheres to the principle of using one force to shatter 10,000 Tao, so what is truly useful to his body are his fists. As the great accomplishment Sacred Body launched this punch, terrifying power poured directly down from the sky. When this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy saw this scene, he was instantly dumbfounded. However, quickly recovering, he hurriedly used the immortal sword in his hand to block the attack. After all, if he used his body to resist this blow, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. The moment the great accomplishment Sacred Body's fist struck the immortal sword in his hand, the immortal sword was immediately sent flying by this terrifying force. And this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy was also directly shaken and sent flying by this terrifying power. At the same time, he was directly embedded in the large mountain below. And this terrifying power also instantly leveled an entire large mountain. This was the great battle between alternative path attainment expert. Moreover, this was only one move. If they truly fought a major battle together, even the entire eastern region might be destroyed. Chapter 543, The Great War Beyond the Realms, is about to begin. The excited Xianyuan family. 3 unconventional Tao achievements take action. After the 2 alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy were struck underground by the great accomplishment Sacred Body, the great accomplishment Sacred Body showed a hint of disdain in his eyes. He had not expected the 2 individuals before him to be so weak and vulnerable. However, at this moment, the 2 old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy below slowly climbed back up from the ground. Then, terrifying chi emanated from their bodies, and simultaneously, they flew directly into the high sky. Their eyes were filled with rage as they looked at the great accomplishment Sacred Body opposite them. Since you are seeking death, then we shall grant your wish. Following this, the purple-robed old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy spoke to the great accomplishment Sacred Body with anger in his eyes. After speaking, he instantly transformed into a stream of light and vanished into the sky. At the same time, he headed towards the direction of the outer domain at an extremely fast speed. The other old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy naturally also quickly turned into a stream of light and headed towards the outer domain upon seeing this scene. The great accomplishment Sacred Body naturally showed a hint of disdain upon seeing this scene. Subsequently, he also transformed into a golden ray of light and disappeared from his original location. However, the golden Tao beneath his feet covered the entire sky of the eastern region. This allowed all the cultivators in the eastern region to witness this golden Tao power. Furthermore, the power of chi and blood on his body was released without the slightest concealment. Therefore, even the quasi-emperor level experts currently engaged in battle above the central region felt this terrifying aura. Moreover, besides the golden chi and blood power emanating from the great accomplishment Sacred Body, there were also 2 other alternative paths to enlightenment auras present. This instantly attracted the attention of these quasi-emperor level experts. Seeing that the battlefield was moving to the outer domain, Chuaning also immediately turned into a ray of light and followed after them. Just as Chuaning left, Heavenly Secret Master barely managed to arrive, but Heavenly Secret Master, having just arrived, wore a look of helplessness on his face, because he had not expected the great battle to move to the outer domain just as he arrived. However, at this moment, he naturally headed towards the outer domain without any hesitation. After all, Heavenly Secret Master also wanted to see who exactly was invading the great Xia Empire this time. Meanwhile, in Chang'an City, Chu Fan naturally also sensed this terrifying Tao power in the sky. I didn't expect two alternative path to enlightenment existences to appear directly this time. It seems I ultimately underestimated the enemy this time, but with the great accomplishment Sacred Body and Chuaning present, they should be able to defeat them easily. Following this, Chu Fan slowly looked towards the direction where the golden Dao disappeared and spoke. At the same time, he clearly saw how powerful the enemies invading their great Xia Empire were this time. Chu Fan also began to speculate which faction could possibly dispatch two alternative path to enlightenment existences. After all, alternative path to enlightenment existences should be rare among the top factions. Yet now, two of them had come to directly wage war against their great Xia Empire. However, Chu Fan quickly dismissed the thoughts in his mind. Then, he leisurely cast his gaze towards the outer domain in the sky. Since Heavenly Secret Master had already gone to the outer domain, once he returned, the identity of the enemy this time would be known. At this moment, within the small world of the Xianyuan family in the central region, the Xianyuan family, being the top faction in the central region, naturally also sensed these auras. Thus, all the old ancestor-level experts of the Xianyuan family raised their heads and looked towards the sky. They looked at the three auras in the sky that resembled scorching suns. The fourth ancestor and fifth ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. I didn't expect these two old fellows to make a move, but who is their enemy? An alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of the Xianyuan family instantly looked shocked as he watched the figures in the sky, because this alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of the Xianyuan family had already clearly seen the identities of two of them. This was why he was looking at the scene in the sky with such shock. The other two alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family beside him also looked towards the sky with shock in their eyes. Clearly, they were also extremely shocked. At this moment, the family head of the Xianyuan family used the Xianyuan mirror to project all the figures in the sky above the small world of the Xianyuan family. This instantly allowed the elders, grand elders, and others of the Xianyuan family to witness the scene involving the great accomplishment Sacred Body and the others. This is the human race's great accomplishment Sacred Body, and a great accomplishment Sacred Body that has already reached the alternative path to enlightenment level. Which faction possesses such a powerful existence? A quasi-emperor level old ancestor also looked towards the great accomplishment Sacred Body at this moment and asked incredulously. After speaking, he also looked at the scene in the sky with a solemn expression. Did you notice the figure beside the great accomplishment Sacred Body? Isn't he the alternative path to enlightenment expert who followed that mysterious young master from the netherworld last time? However, at this moment, a great saint-level grand elder of the Xianyuan family couldn't help but speak, his eyes filled with disbelief after he finished. If that's truly the case, doesn't that mean the Heavenly God Academy has started a war with the netherworld? Another grand elder of the Xianyuan family exclaimed at this moment. After hearing the words of these grand elders, the alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family finally realized the situation. At the same time, the alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family also understood the intentions of the Heavenly God Academy. After all, through their investigation over the past few days, they had discovered that the netherworld should be the faction of the possessor of the human emperor fate. That meant the Heavenly God Academy was currently planning to make a move against this possessor of the human emperor fate. Keep an eye on the Heavenly God Academy. Although the great battle in the sky hasn't fully erupted yet, those two old fellows from the Heavenly God Academy won't be a match for the netherworld. Don't let the Heavenly God Academy reinforce those two old fellows in the sky. Following this, an alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of the Xianyuan family spoke with excitement in his eyes. The Heavenly God Academy was originally the mortal enemy of their Xianyuan family. Now that the Heavenly God Academy might suffer the loss of an alternative path to enlightenment existence, their Xianyuan family was very happy to see such a situation. Moreover, the faction battling the alternative path attainment experts of the Heavenly God Academy this time was the power behind the possessor of the human emperor fate of this era. This naturally had a great relationship with their Xianyuan family. The other two alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family silently nodded after hearing the words of this old ancestor. Subsequently, the three alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family flew directly out of the Xianyuan family's small world and instantly locked their gaze onto the entire sky. As long as an alternative path attainment expert appeared from the Heavenly God Academy, they would be able to lock onto his figure, and then they could prevent the Heavenly God Academy's alternative path attainment expert from helping the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy in the sky. Chapter 544: The Choice of the Heavenly God Academy, the Awakening of the Forbidden Zone Supreme. Naturally, the scene in the sky could not be hidden from Heavenly God Academy. At this moment, in the back mountains of Heavenly God Academy, a group of elders all looked towards the phenomenon in the sky. They had not expected that the two alternative path attainers who had left their Heavenly God Academy would be stopped by the two experts beside the possessor of the human emperor fate. Moreover, what was more important was that Heavenly God Academy had not expected that this possessor of the human emperor fate actually had a great accomplishment sacred body by his side. It seems we still underestimated the possessor of the human emperor fate. He actually has a great accomplishment sacred body by his side, and the current strength of this great accomplishment sacred body seems to have already entered alternative path to enlightenment. If that's the case, it will be quite difficult for our Heavenly God Academy to take down this possessor of the human emperor fate. An elder in white robes from Heavenly God Academy slowly raised his head, looking at the scene in the sky, and said, after speaking, his eyes still held a hint of helplessness, and he frowned as he looked at the great accomplishment sacred body in the sky. He also had not expected that Chu Fan would have a great accomplishment sacred body by his side, and more importantly, this sacred body had actually grown to the realm of alternative path to enlightenment. Should we go out and support them now? After all, a possessor of the great accomplishment sacred body should be invincible among those of the same realm. And more importantly, this possessor of the human emperor fate also has an alternative Dao attainer by his side. Their chances of winning are extremely slim. At this moment, another elder from Heavenly God Academy also slowly stepped forward and spoke. His eyes also held some helplessness as he said this. After all, they had not expected that this possessor of the human emperor fate would have two such terrifying beings by his side. Of course, they knew about the first alternative Dao attainer, but they had not expected that this possessor of the human emperor fate would also have a great accomplishment sacred body who was an alternative Dao attainer by his side. This instantly left them somewhat at a loss. It's no use for us to go out now, because the Xianyuan family has already sealed off the entire central region. It can be said that as long as an alternative Dao attainer from our Heavenly God Academy goes out, the alternative Dao attainers from their Xianyuan family will definitely make a move. At that time, it will escalate into a true great battle of alternative path attainers, and Heavenly God Academy cannot withstand such a great battle right now. An alternative Dao attainer elder from Heavenly God Academy also slowly stepped forward and spoke at this moment. Although their Heavenly God Academy still had alternative Dao attainers present, they could not make a move right now. If the alternative Dao attainers from their Heavenly God Academy were to make a move now, they would definitely clash with the alternative Dao attainers from the Xianyuan family. Then, the great battle between the Xianyuan family and their Heavenly God Academy would begin prematurely. This was not something Heavenly God Academy wished to see. Moreover, what was more important was that this alternative Dao attainer from Heavenly God Academy also sensed the chi of these alternative path attainers in the sky. So he knew that the alternative Dao attainer experts of the Xianyuan family had sealed off the entire central region. Therefore, there was no longer any need for them to make a move now. Otherwise, a true great battle of alternative path attainers would erupt. At that time, the entire central region might be annihilated by this great battle. Are we just going to watch this great battle unfold? Another elder, whose chi was about to reach alternative path to enlightenment, looked at the scene in the sky with anger in his eyes and said, if this great battle truly continued, then the two alternative Dao attainer experts of their Heavenly God Academy would definitely be injured. They might even directly perish at the hands of these two followers of the possessor of the human emperor fate. Alternative Dao attainer experts were not numerous in their Heavenly God Academy. Losing even one would be a huge loss for them. We have no choice now. We can only see if they can escape back with their own strength. If there's truly no way, then we can only pray for the old ancestor to open a space-time passage and summon them back. The elder in white robes who had just spoken also slowly stood up at this moment and said, his eyes also held a hint of determination as he said this. He would absolutely not allow the alternative Dao attainer experts of their Heavenly God Academy to perish. After all, the demise of an alternative Dao attainer would also have a great impact on their Heavenly God Academy. Therefore, at this moment, he had already thought of a method. The other old ancestors of Heavenly God Academy, after hearing the words of this old ancestor, could only reluctantly agree to his suggestion. After all, if they went out now, they would only clash with the true experts of the Xianyuan family. At that time, the battle outside would probably end. The true great battle would unfold between the Xianyuan family and their Heavenly God Academy. This would have a great impact on the plans of their Heavenly God Academy. And just as Heavenly God Academy remained silent, at this moment, the supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone were also awakened by these terrifying chis in the sky. At this moment, in the ancient Forbidden Zone, several supreme being level experts from the Forbidden Zone also directly opened their eyes and looked towards the sky. I didn't expect to see a great accomplishment sacred body in this era. and its lifespan is still so abundant. It seems we ultimately underestimated this era. A supreme being looked at the great accomplishment sacred body in the sky with a hint of fervor in his eyes. Although a great accomplishment sacred body was the most difficult existence to deal with, for the supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone, it was the best blood meal. It could even be said that the existence of a great accomplishment sacred body could allow these supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone to linger on for tens of thousands of years. Therefore, naturally, their eyes held a fervent expression as they looked at the great accomplishment sacred body in the sky. If he is severely injured in this great battle, we can make a move. Otherwise, let's continue to wait for the opportunity. At this moment, the voice of another supreme being also slowly emerged, and his voice also carried a hint of anticipation. Of course, at this moment, he did not intend to make a direct move. After all, the strength of a great accomplishment sacred body had already surpassed the supreme being level. Therefore, a great accomplishment sacred body expert could defeat several of their supreme beings. If they underwent ultimate sublimation, they could indeed defeat a great accomplishment sacred body. But in that case, they would also only be able to perish helplessly. This was also why these supreme being level experts rarely chose ultimate sublimation even at the most critical moment. Because with ultimate sublimation, they would retrieve their great emperor's Tao fruit from between heaven and earth, allowing them to temporarily become great emperor-level experts. And it was also because of this that the great Tao between heaven and earth would remember them again, making it even more difficult for their lifespan to be extended. This was also why the supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone had always lived such a frustrating life. It could even be said that the supreme beings in the Forbidden Zone would not choose ultimate sublimation even if they were beaten half to death. Chapter 545, The Cunning Supreme Ruler of the Forbidden Zone. The unparalleled battle begins. These supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone are extremely intelligent. One could even say they are cunning and treacherous. Having lived for millions of years, they naturally would not waste their lives so easily. Therefore, if this great accomplishment sacred body were not severely injured, they naturally would not make a move. Furthermore, although the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone belong to the same Forbidden Zone, it is impossible for them to join forces without absolute benefit. Since that is the case, let us await this great battle in the sky. However, I did not expect that the Heavenly God Academy, which has always been plotting something, would also make a move. Does this epic contain something the Heavenly God Academy desires? At this moment, a supreme spoke calmly, but soon his eyes carried a hint of worry as he looked at the two alternative paths to enlightenment existences from the Heavenly God Academy. These supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone naturally understand the Heavenly God Academy very well. One could even say that many supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone know what the Heavenly God Academy has been plotting over these tens of millions of years. However, even though they have reached the supreme being level, they cannot fully investigate what the Heavenly God Academy is truly plotting. This is also why the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone regard the Heavenly God Academy with such importance. After all, no one knows if the Heavenly God Academy will stab them in the back later. And the emergence of the Heavenly God Academy, this time, naturally attracted the attention of the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone. They do not believe that the Heavenly God Academy emerged to resolve this great battle. After all, the great battle outside between the Heavenly Tao Alliance and the powers of the Central Domain cannot capture the Heavenly God Academy's attention. For the Heavenly God Academy, or the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone, the battles outside are merely minor skirmishes. Unless the battle outside escalates into a war between alternative path to enlightenment existences and supremes. Otherwise, it will not attract their attention. And the alternative path to enlightenment great battle in the sky, at this time, naturally also attracted the attention of the Forbidden Zone. Of course, the thoughts of the supreme being level existences in the other Forbidden Zones were similar to those of the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone, because it is impossible for them to make a move directly at this time. Making a move brings not only a crisis to life, but also the possibility of these supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone falling. Therefore, they naturally would not be foolish enough to make a move directly. Of course, if they can act as the final victor, they naturally would not stand idly by. And just as the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone turned their gaze toward the sky, it can be said that the gaze of the entire Central Domain was focused on the alternative path to enlightenment great battle in the sky. At this time, the two alternative path attainment experts from the Heavenly God Academy also looked at the great accomplishment sacred body opposite them with a hint of anger in their eyes. After all, the great accomplishment sacred body had just defeated both of them in a single move. For them, it was naturally a humiliation. The old ancestor from the Heavenly God Academy, who was wearing a purple robe, instantly emitted streaks of purple light from his eyes. These purple lights quickly condensed into a massive purple eyeball in the sky. And from this giant purple eyeball, a large hand stretched out. This large hand, without any hesitation, directly struck toward the great accomplishment sacred body. Meanwhile, the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, beside him, also emitted streaks of black light from his eyes. Immediately after, his surroundings were instantly enveloped by a black light. And behind this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, a jet-black treasured sword instantly appeared. This treasured sword seemed capable of severing space and time. Moreover, it was continuously growing larger. As this treasured sword continuously grew larger, a terrifying sword beam instantly tore through the entire firmament and slashed toward the great accomplishment sacred body. Everyone watched the two terrifying scenes in the sky with looks of disbelief, because these two attacks seemed capable of completely piercing through the entire sky. When the great accomplishment sacred body saw this scene, a look of excitement appeared on his face. His entire body instantly emitted a golden light. This golden light instantly dyed the entire sky golden. The great accomplishment sacred body stood between heaven and earth, appearing like another sun. Following this, he resolutely threw a punch forward. Terrifying golden chi and blood power instantly enveloped the entire sky. At the same time, a terrifying golden fist also descended from the sky. The next second, this golden fist struck directly toward the hand and sword light in the sky. Following this, the golden fist instantly collided with the hand and sword light in the sky. The moment of collision, the surrounding laws were completely annihilated. One could even say that the myriad Tao began to tremble at this moment. It was as if the laws of the entire space could not withstand this terrifying attack. At the same time, the great accomplishment sacred body did not hesitate, transforming into a golden light and charging toward the two alternative paths to enlightenment old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy before him. The golden Tao also paved the entire firmament. When the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy, who had achieved alternative path to enlightenment, saw this scene, a hint of anger appeared in their eyes. Following this, the two of them immediately charged toward the great accomplishment sacred body before them. As the three terrifying lights collided, the entire outer domain battlefield was completely transformed into a terrifying battleground. The aura of destruction continuously emanated from the battlefield. This caused the quasi-emperor level experts near the outer domain to stop their battles and retreat toward the distance. Although their cultivation had reached the quasi-emperor realm, they could only helplessly evade the conflict now. After all, the current great battle could already affect them. One could even say that the fluctuations from these great battles could potentially kill them. This is the gap between the quasi-emperor and alternative path to enlightenment. Meanwhile, under another patch of the firmament, Heavenly Secret Master finally arrived beside Chuaning. Looking at the great battle in the sky, his eyes showed a hint of disbelief. However, at this moment, he cupped his hands toward Chuaning. After all, Heavenly Secret Master knew that the person standing before him was also an alternative path to enlightenment existence. Afterward, he slowly cast his gaze toward the other two alternative paths to enlightenment existences on the battlefield. Moreover, a hazy aura appeared in his eyes, and more importantly, this hazy aura carried terrifying chaos chi. In just a moment, Heavenly Secret Master learned the identities of the two alternative paths to enlightenment existences before him. However, at this moment, his face turned extremely pale. He even spat out a mouthful of fresh blood directly. Nevertheless, Heavenly Secret Master did not show much regret for himself on his face. Instead, he looked at the two alternative paths to enlightenment existences in the sky with a look of disbelief. Chapter 546, A World-Destroying Battle. The Strange Movements of the Sky Mending Stone. Seeing this scene, Chuaning quickly injected his power into the body of the Heavenly Secret Master beside him. Do you know their identities? Then, he looked at the Heavenly Secret Master before him with a puzzled expression and asked, naturally knowing the Heavenly Secret Master's true function. Thus, Chuaning guessed that the Heavenly Secret Master must have clearly seen the identities of the two alternative paths to enlightenment before them. Indeed, they're the old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy, one of the two great behemoths. I need to report this to the Emperor Lord. Elder Chuaning, I take my leave. The Heavenly Secret Master hurriedly stabilized the chi within his body, then hastily cupped his hands toward Chuaning and immediately rushed toward the eastern region again without hesitation. At this moment, he had pushed his strength to its peak because he wanted to quickly report the news he had obtained to his Emperor Lord. After all, the Heavenly God Academy was still too terrifying. Therefore, he needed to return now to report to his Emperor Lord and find a countermeasure. Of course, just as the Heavenly Secret Master was rushing toward the eastern region, an alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of the Xianyuan family naturally witnessed this scene. He frowned, and then he instantly transformed into a streak of light, following the Heavenly Secret Master toward the eastern region. The Xianyuan family naturally knew of the existence of the Tianji Pavilion. If the Heavenly Secret Master of the Tianji Pavilion was rushing toward the eastern region in such a hurry, then it was likely that the possessor of the human emperor fate was in the eastern region. The Xianyuan family naturally wanted to quickly find this possessor of the human emperor fate now. Therefore, he followed the Heavenly Secret Master's footsteps without any surprise. As for the other two alternative paths to enlightenment old ancestors of the Xianyuan family, they continued to stay above the central region, as they naturally could not allow other alternative path attainment experts from the Heavenly God Academy to emerge. Of course, if the peak experts of the Heavenly God Academy appeared, then the Xianyuan family would also use their trump card. After all, the Xianyuan family's trump card was not merely the Xianyuan sword. As the great battle in the sky continued, this fight quickly lasted for a full day. Of course, for experts above alternative path to enlightenment, such a battle and such a duration felt like merely an instant. And after this great battle had lasted for so long, the two alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy in the sky also sustained different injuries. Among them, the elder of the Heavenly God Academy wearing a purple robe had a massive fist mark on his body. It was as if all the bones in his body had been completely shattered by this punch from the great accomplishment sacred body. However, at this moment, his face was pale as he looked at the great accomplishment sacred body opposite him. Meanwhile, a terrifying and hideous bloody mark appeared on the body of the other old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. Furthermore, beside this bloody mark, one could see golden chi and blood power constantly eroding his body. This made the expression on the face of this Heavenly God Academy old ancestor even more unsightly. More importantly, the immortal sword in his hand had been broken in half. It must be known that although the immortal sword in the hand of this Heavenly God Academy old ancestor did not reach the level of an ultimate emperor weapon, it was still considered an emperor weapon. Yet even so, it was smashed in half directly by the great accomplishment sacred body. From this, one could see how terrifying the great accomplishment sacred body's current strength had become. Of course, the great accomplishment sacred body also had some wounds on his body now. For example, there was a terrible sword mark on his chest. Moreover, golden blood was continuously flowing from this sword mark. However, for him, it seemed to have no significant effect. The great accomplishment sacred body, with a burning zeal in his eyes, continued to attack the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy. At the same time, the golden Tao beneath his feet caused the entire space to turn golden. More importantly, a giant Dharma idol appeared behind this great accomplishment sacred body. The giant Dharma idol's fervent eyes emitted two terrifying beams of golden chi and blood power, like two suns. Then, without any surprise, they attacked the two alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy. Simultaneously, the golden fist in the hand of this great accomplishment sacred body struck mercilessly toward the two alternative path to enlightenment old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy before him. Seeing this scene, a look of determination instantly appeared in the eyes of the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy. Following this, the Heavenly God Academy elder wearing the purple robe instantly emitted a surge of purple chi. As this purple chi continuously spread, he leaped high into the air. The next second, a terrifying purple great seal appeared behind him. And this purple great seal directly attacked the great accomplishment sacred body coming from the sky. As for him, he once again cast a terrifying spell. A terrifying purple pillar of light instantly shot toward the beam of golden chi and blood power descending from the sky. The other alternative path to enlightenment old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy quickly swung the immortal sword in his hand. Although the immortal sword in his hand had been broken in large part by the great accomplishment sacred body, the might of an emperor weapon could still be felt within the sword. At the same time, a terrifying sword light appeared behind him. This sword light also headed toward the golden chi and blood power descending from the sky. Subsequently, several terrifying attacks collided once more. The moment these attacks collided, a huge rift was torn across the entire sky. It was as if the sky itself had been completely destroyed by the battle between the three. However, a pillar of light radiating five-colored brilliance quickly repaired the rift in the sky completely, allowing the battle between the three to continue. And just as the battle between the three continued, the heaven-mending stone above Azure Dragon City was constantly shaking. It was as if this heaven-mending stone wanted to break free from the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion's grasp and fly directly into the sky, as if its true mission had arrived. But how could the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion allow the heaven-mending stone to leave? He was seen continuously injecting the power within his body into the heaven-mending stone. Only then was he barely able to stabilize the heaven-mending stone. Simultaneously, a terrifying aura emerged directly from the heaven-mending pavilion, and he instantly transformed into a beam of light, appearing in Azure Dragon City. Looking at the continuously vibrating heaven-mending stone, a look of shock and solemnity appeared in the eyes of this expert from the heaven-mending pavilion. Then, he waved his hand, dismissing the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion, and instantly emitted a terrifying 5-colored radiance. This terrifying 5-colored radiance instantly enveloped the entire heaven-mending stone, causing the entire heaven-mending stone to begin stabilizing. However, after the heaven-mending stone was stabilized, this expert of the heaven-mending pavilion directly put away the heaven-mending stone. After all, if the heaven-mending stone continued to be left here, it might be completely swept away by the great battle in the sky. Chapter 547 Tianjizi returns, the enemy's identity. The sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion, upon seeing this scene, also showed a bewildered expression. He had not expected that his own heaven-mending stone would actually be retrieved by his own old ancestor. And as the heaven-mending stone was retrieved by the old ancestor of the heaven-mending pavilion, the chi radiating from the armies below completely diminished. It could even be said that the cultivation levels of many soldiers directly dropped by 1 rank. Seeing this scene, the leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance instantly revealed an expression of excitement. Initially, although they could fight the allied forces in front of them with the blessing of the Crimson Dragon Gem, if the battle continued, the Heavenly Dao Alliance's army would suffer even heavier losses. Therefore, the leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance was somewhat worried. However, he had not expected that the heaven-mending stone would now be retrieved by an expert from the heaven-mending pavilion. This was a very good thing for them. However, just as the leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance revealed a flash of excited smile, the blood-red Crimson Dragon Gem above his head was also emanating a terrifying black chi. More importantly, the Crimson Dragon Gem also directly split open at this moment, and countless cracks instantly appeared on its surface. Moreover, this black chi was continuously injecting itself into the sky. The next second, the Crimson Dragon Gem was seen shattering directly. It transformed into streaks of blood-red light and vanished between heaven and earth, as if it had never appeared at all. The leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, who originally had a smile on his face, instantly froze. He had not expected his Crimson Dragon Gem to shatter into pieces and disappear between heaven and earth so easily. However, at this moment he also realized that the Crimson Dragon Gem was destroyed because of the great battle between heaven and earth. Therefore, the leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance instantly looked at the battle in the sky with a flash of anger. Of course, the combatants in the sky, at this time, naturally did not notice what was happening below. When the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion saw this scene, the worry on his face completely dissipated, and he then watched the leader of the Heavenly Dao Alliance with interest. Even the sect master of the heaven-mending pavilion had not expected the battle in the sky to affect the Crimson Dragon Gem. In fact, it was not surprising that the battle in the sky could affect the Crimson Dragon Gem. The main reason was that the scope of the battle in the sky was too vast. Moreover, more importantly, the Crimson Dragon Gem needed to stabilize the 4 directions. Therefore, at this time, it could only transform into several streams of power to stabilize the 4 directions and the law that was constantly being destroyed. This was also the reason why the Crimson Dragon Gem completely vanished. Just as the Crimson Dragon Gem on the Heavenly Dao Alliance side disappeared, the Heavenly Secret Master on the other side finally returned to Chang'an City. At this moment, his face was extremely pale. However, the Heavenly Secret Master did not stop his steps at all. Instead, he continuously headed toward the direction of the Imperial Palace. His figure directly turned into a streak of light and sped toward the Imperial Palace. Of course, the guardians of the Imperial Palace naturally saw the Heavenly Secret Master. However, they did not stop the Heavenly Secret Master at this time. Instead, they allowed the Heavenly Secret Master to proceed to the Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, Chu Fan inside the Imperial Palace was calmly watching the great battle outside the domain. Although the great accomplishment Sacred Body had already gained the upper hand at this moment, it would still take some time to completely win this great battle. However, Chu Fan had no worries in his heart at this time. Instead, he watched the great battle in the sky with a hint of calmness in his eyes. His pair of golden eyes directly pierced through time and space, looking at the great battle in the outside world. However, Chu Fan also sensed the arrival of the Heavenly Secret Master at this moment. Thereupon, he was seen slowly retracting his gaze. Then, he calmly waited for the Heavenly Secret Master to return. Soon, the Heavenly Secret Master appeared before Chu Fan. At this moment, his body, suffering backlash from calculating the Heavenly Secret, began to tremble slowly. However, he still endured the terrifying backlash within his body, came directly before Chu Fan, and cupped his hands toward Chu Fan. Chu Fan frowned upon seeing this scene, and then a streak of golden power instantly appeared in his hand. This golden power was directly injected into the Heavenly Secret Master's body. Moreover, due to luck, the Heavenly Secret Master's chi began to slowly recover. In a short while, the Heavenly Secret Master's injuries had recovered by more than half. Thank you, Emperor. After sensing that his body had recovered by more than half, the Heavenly Secret Master spoke to Chu Fan with respect. Have you calculated the identities of those two people? Chu Fan slowly looked at the Heavenly Secret Master and spoke. After speaking, he waved his hand, and a streak of golden light instantly enveloped the entire Imperial Palace. Indeed, those two alternative path attainment experts are experts from the Heavenly God Academy. Their visit this time to probe our great Xia Empire is likely intended to test the Emperor, and most importantly, they have probably already guessed the Emperor's human Emperor fate. After hearing Chu Fan's words, a solemn expression instantly appeared on the Heavenly Secret Master's face. He then looked up at the battle in the sky, before slowly speaking. However, it was clear that the Heavenly Secret Master attached great importance to the Heavenly God Academy. After all, even the Tianji Pavilion did not truly understand the real Heavenly God Academy well. Therefore, after learning that these two alternative path attainment experts were experts from the Heavenly God Academy, the Heavenly Secret Master returned directly to Chang'an City without any hesitation. So, they're experts from the legendary Heavenly God Academy. It seems the Heavenly God Academy is not as simple as we imagined. Chu Fan instantly reacted after hearing the Heavenly Secret Master's words. Although the Heavenly Secret Master had told him many things about the Heavenly God Academy at the beginning, he still had not expected the Heavenly God Academy to directly make a move against their Chang'an City. One must know that even the Xianyuan family probably did not know about him, the possessor of the human Emperor fate. Yet, the Heavenly God Academy was coming directly for him. This instantly caused a worried expression to appear on Chu Fan's face. After all, if the Heavenly God Academy could so easily produce two alternative paths to enlightenment existences, then there were definitely many more alternative paths to enlightenment existences within the Heavenly God Academy. Just as Chu Fan was still feeling worried about the Heavenly God Academy, the Son of Heaven in the Great Xia Empire instantly appeared in the sky. Thereupon, he was seen instantly looking toward the distance. He looked ahead with a mix of calmness and longing in his eyes. Chu Fan and the Heavenly Secret Master instantly guessed something upon seeing this scene. At the same time, a hint of regret appeared on the Heavenly Secret Master's face. Since your Excellency has arrived, please reveal yourself for a meeting. The Son of Heaven spoke leisurely toward the boundless sky ahead at this moment. This was also because he did not sense any killing intent emanating from this expert. Otherwise, he would have already attacked directly. Chapter 548, the Xianyuan family patriarch who came to follow us, and the Xianyuan family's desire for an alliance. After hearing Tianzi's words, Chu Fan and Heavenly Secret Master simultaneously looked toward the area in front of Tianzi. They also wanted to see who exactly had come to their Great Xia Empire this time. However, at this moment, Chu Fan naturally did not show much worry on his face. Besides having Tianzi, an existence who took the alternative path to enlightenment, their Great Xia Empire also had a temporary summoning card in Chu Fan's possession. Moreover, the strength of the characters summoned by this temporary summoning card had reached at least the alternative path to enlightenment existence, or perhaps even an existence at the Great Emperor level. Therefore, Chu Fan naturally was not worried about enemies invading. Just as Tianzi's words faded, an old man slowly appeared in front of him. The old man was wearing a golden battle robe, and he looked extremely imposing. However, he was currently scrutinizing Tianzi, who stood before him, a look of shock in his eyes. I didn't expect to meet an existence like fellow Taoist here. This is truly surprising. Following this, the old man in the golden battle robe spoke with a sigh of emotion in his eyes. This person was none other than the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. Because the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family wanted to prevent the Heavenly God Academy from emerging, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, who had taken the alternative path to enlightenment, had directly put on his golden battle robe. One must know that the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, wearing the golden battle robe, signified the activation of a great war. He had just arrived by following the footsteps of Heavenly Secret Master. Having arrived here, he naturally sensed Tianzi's chi. Therefore, after hearing Tianzi's words, he immediately stepped forward. Who is your excellency, and why have you appeared in my great Xia Empire? After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Tianzi slowly spoke again. However, immediately after speaking, the terrifying qi emanating from him instantly surged toward the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was even more shocked after sensing this qi. However, he quickly released his own qi to resist the incoming surge. Only then did he speak helplessly to Tianzi before him. I'm the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. I have come this time only to search for the possessor of the human emperor fate. Of course, he did not say this out loud. Instead, he transmitted the message directly into Tianzi's mind. Although the Heavenly God Academy now knew about the possessor of the human emperor fate, the Xianyuan family believed that the supreme beings from the Forbidden Zone were still unaware that the possessor of the human emperor fate had appeared in this generation. Therefore, they still intended to keep the possessor of the human emperor fate a secret. This way, they would no longer have to face those supremes from the Forbidden Zone. Otherwise, if the Supremes from the Forbidden Zone learned that the possessor of the human Emperor Fate had emerged in this era, those Supremes would likely never allow the possessor of the human Emperor Fate to grow strong. After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Tianzi instantly understood the identity of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family standing before him. Thus, he immediately transmitted the identity of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family to Chu Fan. Bring him into the Imperial Palace. Upon hearing Tianzi's voice transmission, Chu Fan immediately understood the man's identity, and he also guessed the main reason for his visit. Therefore, Chu Fan immediately transmitted a message, instructing Tianzi to bring him in. Please follow me. After hearing Chu Fan's voice transmission, Tianzi waved his hand directly at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family and spoke. After speaking, he transformed into a beam of light and entered the Imperial Palace. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, filled with anticipation, also transformed into a beam of light and followed Tianzi, appearing inside the Imperial Palace. Immediately upon appearing inside the Imperial Palace, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family saw Heavenly Secret Master and Chu Fan standing beside Heavenly Secret Master. At the same time, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family saw the brilliance of the masses of light emanating from Chu Fan's body. At this moment, Chu Fan seemed to be completely enveloped in a golden radiance. When the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family saw this scene, a scorching light instantly appeared in his eyes. This caused Chu Fan to frown as he looked at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family before him. May I ask why the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family is seeking this young master? Then, Chu Fan directly questioned the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family before him, a playful smile in his eyes after he finished speaking. Because Heavenly Secret Master had said from the start that the Xianyuan family would definitely come looking for him, the arrival of the Xianyuan family now naturally made him understand certain things. Young friend, you are the possessor of the human emperor fate of this era. Our Xianyuan family once also had a possessor of the human emperor fate, so in this era, our Xianyuan family wishes to form an alliance with you. After hearing Chu Fan's words, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family spoke directly to Chu Fan. At the same time, he did not explicitly say that the Xianyuan family wanted to protect Chu Fan. After all, Chu Fan already had 3 existences who took the alternative path to enlightenment by his side, and Chu Fan was also the possessor of the human emperor fate of this era. It shouldn't be particularly difficult for Chu Fan to grow strong. However, since Chu Fan now had to face the Heavenly God Academy, growing strong would not be so simple anymore. Why should this young master form an alliance with your Xianyuan family? Chu Fan was naturally not too surprised after hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. Instead, he calmly spoke to the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family again. He wanted to see what kind of bargaining chip the Xianyuan family could offer to form an alliance with him. Although this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was also in existence who took the alternative path to enlightenment, their great Xia Empire had a total of 3 existences who took the alternative path to enlightenment. Young friend, do you know the identity of the enemy who came to the great Xia Empire this time? The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family showed no change in expression after hearing Chu Fan's words. Instead, he smiled calmly before slowly speaking to Chu Fan. At this moment, he did not mention what benefits the Xianyuan family could bring Chu Fan. Instead, he directly pointed the spearhead toward the Heavenly God Academy. The Heavenly God Academy. After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, a hint of coldness instantly appeared in Chu Fan's eyes, because the Heavenly God Academy had already invaded their great Xia Empire. Naturally, he could not let the Heavenly God Academy off the hook. Chu Fan was even considering summoning the character on his temporary summoning card right now. and then immediately using this powerful individual to go to the Heavenly God Academy. However, Chu Fan did not know the exact location of the Heavenly God Academy right now. Furthermore, Chu Fan did not know exactly how many powerful experts were inside the Heavenly God Academy. After all, if the Heavenly God Academy had many powerful experts, then the Great Xia Empire truly wouldn't be a match for the Heavenly God Academy right now. This was also the reason why Chu Fan was able to restrain himself. Chapter 549, The Foundation of the Heavenly God Academy. The ancestor of the Xianyuan family answers his questions. However, as long as he can deal with the two alternative paths to enlightenment from the Heavenly God Academy this time, he will receive a reward. At that time, the reward might allow him to summon two top experts. And with two alternative paths to enlightenment falling in the Heavenly God Academy, and their Great Xia Empire gaining two top experts, such a situation is favorable for him. Moreover, and more importantly, after this mission is completed, he will also receive a Saint-grade summoning card. Although he doesn't plan to use the Saint-grade summoning card, with the previous Saint-grade summoning cards, Chu Fan can already fuse a Quasi-Emperor level summoning card. At that time, their Great Xia Empire will be able to add another Quasi-Emperor level expert. And this Quasi-Emperor level expert, cultivating inside his Time Pagoda, will quickly reach the perfected Quasi-Emperor realm. Of course, as long as Chu Fan has enough time, both Fei Peng and Chong Lu can break through to the alternative path to enlightenment. Moreover, and more importantly, current prodigies like Yuan Ta, who are all at the Great Sage Perfection realm, are about to break through to the Quasi-Emperor realm. All they lack is time. Since Little Friend knows about the Heavenly God Academy, then does Little Friend think the Great Xia Empire can now contend with the Heavenly God Academy? The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was not too surprised that Chu Fan knew about the Heavenly God Academy. After all, even Heavenly Secret Master of the Tianji Pavilion had already pledged allegiance to Chu Fan. Therefore, Chu Fan naturally knew some things about these top forces in the Central Domain. Although the Tianji Pavilion is considered a top existence in the entire Central Domain, due to the fact that the Tianji Pavilion only has one successor per generation. The Tianji Pavilion is perceived as non-existent by most people. However, how could the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family not know about the Tianji Pavilion? Then, how much does the Xianyuan family know about the Heavenly God Academy? After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Chu Fan slowly raised his head again and looked at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, speaking. At the same time, after speaking, he also had a hint of anticipation in his heart. He wanted to extract some information about the Heavenly God Academy from the mouth of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. And the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family naturally understood the meaning behind Chu Fan's words. However, at this moment, he would naturally not be stingy. Instead, he calmly looked at Chu Fan. Then he slowly began to speak. The Xianyuan family doesn't know how many experts are specifically in the Heavenly God Academy. After all, the Heavenly God Academy has existed for tens of millions of years, while our Xianyuan family has only risen for 1,000,000 years. However, the number of alternative path to enlightenment holders in the Heavenly God Academy should be no less than 10. And after these words from the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family fell, Chu Fan was completely shocked. He had initially guessed that there should be 5 or 6 alternative path to enlightenment existences in the Heavenly God Academy. But he never expected to learn from the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family that there were no fewer than 10 alternative path to enlightenment existences in the Heavenly God Academy. Moreover, this was still the Xianyuan family's guess, which would imply that the number of alternative path to enlightenment existences in the Heavenly God Academy far exceeded this figure. And more importantly, there should still be living Great Emperor-level existences in the Heavenly God Academy. As for how many Great Emperor-level existences there are, our Xianyuan family also doesn't know, but they definitely possess more than one Great Emperor-level existence. However, before Chu Fan could react, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family once again spoke of something incredible to Chu Fan. The configuration of the Heavenly God Academy had already left Chu Fan incredulous. But now, he never expected that the Heavenly God Academy actually possessed Great Emperor-level existences. Aren't the Great Emperor-level experts of our era supposed to have fallen 2 tens of thousands of years ago? How could the Heavenly God Academy possibly possess Great Emperor-level existences? At this moment, Heavenly Secret Master, standing beside Chu Fan, also slowly stepped forward and interjected. According to the records of the Tianji Pavilion, the Great Emperor-level experts of their era had already fallen 2 tens of thousands of years ago. Therefore, Heavenly Secret Master at this moment inquired of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family with a hint of disbelief. Since you're the current successor of the Tianji Pavilion, then you should be aware of why our Xianyuan family was once besieged by various major forces. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family looked at Heavenly Secret Master in front of him and slowly spoke, with a hint of anger in his eyes after speaking. Because the Xianyuan family had sacrificed so many experts to protect the entire central domain, yet the central domain directly attacked their Xianyuan family for the non-existent secret of immortality that the Xianyuan family supposedly possessed. Heavenly Secret Master also nodded after hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. Even Chu Fan, who was beside them, looked curiously at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family at this moment, because he had also learned from Heavenly Secret Master about the Great War between the former Xianyuan family and the Central Domain forces. In fact, our Xianyuan family did obtain some secrets about immortality, which is why we are able to live to this day. And if our Xianyuan family, which is only a million-year-old family, can have the secret of immortality, do you think the Heavenly God Academy, which has existed for tens of millions of years, could not have the secret of immortality? Is immortality really difficult for them? The next words from the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family also shocked Chu Fan, because Chu Fan never expected that the Xianyuan family actually possessed the secret of immortality. And the subsequent question from the Xianyuan family made Chu Fan completely understand. If the Xianyuan family, which is only a million-year-old family, possesses the secret method of immortality, then how could this mysterious Heavenly God Academy not possess the secret of immortality? And is immortality really difficult for them? Not difficult. Chu Fan also finally understood at this moment that there should be great Emperor-level experts in the Heavenly God Academy, and even the Xianyuan family in front of him should have great Emperor-level existences. Otherwise, if they knew there were great Emperor-level existences in the Heavenly God Academy, how could they still help him? Since they all possess great Emperor-level existences, then why do they target my Great Xia Empire? Chu Fan at this moment directly asked his doubts to the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family in front of him. One must know that their Great Xia Empire had not provoked the Heavenly God Academy. Moreover, and more importantly, the Great Xia Empire also posed no threat to the Heavenly God Academy. Therefore, the Heavenly God Academy should have no reason to contend with their Great Xia Empire. Because you possess the human Emperor Fate, the Heavenly God Academy fears your growth. After hearing Chu Fan's words, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family did not hesitate at all and immediately stated the crux of the problem. However, after speaking, one could hear a hint of urgency in his tone. After all, in a million years, besides their Xianyuan human emperor of the Xianyuan family, Chu Fan was the second existence with the human Emperor Fate, and also the only existence capable of solving the problems of their Xianyuan family. Chapter 550 Chu Fan learns the truth from a million years ago, and the conspiracy of the Heavenly God Academy. After hearing the words of this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Chu Fan became even more confused. Although he was the possessor of the human Emperor Fate, there shouldn't be much connection between the human Emperor Fate and the Heavenly God Academy. Even Heavenly Secret Master of the Tianji Pavilion was somewhat confused at this moment, because he had never heard of any conflict between the Heavenly God Academy and the possessor of the human Emperor Fate. After all, the Heavenly God Academy had always been very mysterious. Besides the Great War between Great Emperor Howren and Longting Great Emperor long ago, it seemed the Heavenly God Academy had never truly been an enemy of the Xianyuan family. Of course, even so, Heavenly Secret Master understood that the Heavenly God Academy was not as simple as imagined. Otherwise, Heavenly Secret Master would not be wary of the Heavenly God Academy. If the Xianyuan family is to ally with my Great Xia Empire, what does the Xianyuan family require the Great Xia Empire to pay? Or rather, what do they require me to pay? After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Chu Fan slowly looked at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family again and replied. At the same time, he wanted to see what the Xianyuan family's true goal was. After all, Chu Fan did not believe that the Xianyuan family would help him simply because of the human Emperor Fate. Although he possessed the human Emperor Fate that the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family once possessed. But the Xianyuan family naturally wouldn't genuinely help him just because of the human Emperor Fate. Young friend, do you believe that the human Emperor ancestor of my Xianyuan family has not fallen? After hearing Chu Fan's words, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family did not state his purpose, but instead asked Chu Fan this question. At the same time, his face held a hint of reverence. Clearly, he greatly admired his own human emperor ancestor. Although Chu Fan was somewhat surprised after hearing the words of this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, he did not show much expression at the moment. Because Chu Fan had just learned from the mouth of this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family that both the Xianyuan family and the Heavenly God Academy already knew the secret of longevity. In that case, it was normal that the human emperor ancestor of the Xianyuan family had not yet fallen. Moreover, everyone in the entire star domain knew that the former Xianyuan human emperor seemed to have stepped onto that Dao path. Even Heavenly Secret Master knew this point. Therefore, it was normal that the Xianyuan human emperor had not fallen. It seems the young friend also believes that the human emperor ancestor of my Xianyuan family has not fallen. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was somewhat surprised to see the expression on Chu Fan's face, but he quickly recovered. Then, he opened his mouth again and revealed a shocking secret. Actually, this human emperor ancestor of my Xianyuan family discovered the secret of the Heavenly God Academy. Because of this human emperor ancestor of my Xianyuan family was driven out of this universe by the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy. Therefore, the Xianyuan family does not know the current whereabouts of this human emperor ancestor. At the same time, the face of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, who had just finished revealing this secret, showed a trace of helplessness and anger. If the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy had not driven their human emperor ancestor, the Xianyuan family, out of the star domain, the Xianyuan family would definitely not be in its current state. When Chu Fan and Heavenly Secret Master heard his words, they looked at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family in shock. Their eyes filled with disbelief as they stared at the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family before them. They had not expected such a major event to have occurred between the former Xianyuan human emperor and the Heavenly God Academy. One must know that even Heavenly Secret Master thought the former Xianyuan human emperor had gone to seek the legendary path to immortality. But they never thought that the Xianyuan human emperor was facing such a situation. This instantly made Heavenly Secret Master feel that the Heavenly God Academy was not as simple as he had imagined. Since there is an expert in the Heavenly God Academy who could drive the Xianyuan human emperor out of this universe, how could we possibly be an opponent for that expert of the Heavenly God Academy now? At this moment, Chu Fan had already begun to ponder just how powerful the experts in the Heavenly God Academy were. One must know that the Xianyuan human emperor was hailed as the most powerful great emperor-level expert in millions of years. Yet, even an existence as powerful as the Xianyuan human emperor was driven out of this world by the experts of the Heavenly God Academy. From this, one could see just how powerful the top expert in the Heavenly God Academy was. Heavenly Secret Master instantly reacted after hearing Chu Fan's words. If there truly was a top expert in the Heavenly God Academy who drove the Xianyuan human emperor out of this world, then what level of strength had the experts in the Heavenly God Academy reached? Thinking of this, he began to feel dread in his heart. The expert of the Heavenly God Academy is indeed very powerful, but he naturally expended a great deal of effort to drive the human emperor ancestor of my Xianyuan family out of this universe. In fact, the expert of the Heavenly God Academy has completely fallen in a slumber because of my human emperor ancestor of the Xianyuan family, and he should not have awakened yet. And you are the possessor of a human emperor fate. As long as you grow up, you can naturally deal with the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy. This is also the reason why the expert of the Heavenly God Academy fears your growth. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family once again revealed the information he knew, but when he spoke of this, his eyes still held a look of disdain. Clearly, the matter of the Heavenly God Academy's expert driving their human emperor ancestor out of this world was something they held in great contempt. It could even be said that the Xianyuan family now wished they could completely destroy the Heavenly God Academy. So, the emperor must grow up before the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy awakens. Heavenly Secret Master understood at this point, so he frowned and questioned the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. However, Heavenly Secret Master's eyes held a hint of urgency at this moment. Although the growth speed of their emperor was very rapid, no one knew exactly when these top expert of the Heavenly God Academy would awaken. After all, millions of years had passed since the Xianyuan human emperor left this universe. Who knew if the expert of the Heavenly God Academy had awakened during these millions of years? However, based on the current actions of the Heavenly God Academy, one could surmise that the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy should not have awakened yet. Otherwise, only these two existences who took the alternative path to enlightenment would not have appeared this time. More importantly, these two existences who took the alternative path to enlightenment were already covered in injuries, yet the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy still had not appeared. From this, it could be seen that the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy should not have awakened yet. That is correct. Therefore, my Xianyuan family wishes to ally with the Great Xia Empire, and together we will help the young friend grow to the human emperor realm. As long as the young friend reaches the human emperor realm, then even if those top expert in the Heavenly God Academy awaken, it will not matter. After hearing Heavenly Secret Master's words, this old ancestor of the Xianyuan family nodded, then looked at Chu Fan with a hint of anticipation and spoke. Chapter 551 Successful Alliance, Xianyuan Sword and Human Emperor Scripture. Chu Fan, upon hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, also frowned deeply. He hadn't expected to encounter such a difficult problem just as he was about to unify this world. More importantly, he couldn't even avoid it now. After all, as the possessor of the human Emperor Fate, he was an enemy to the Heavenly God Academy. One could even say that the Heavenly God Academy now wished to kill him directly. Otherwise, if a being of the Xianyuan human emperor level were to appear again in this universe, the Heavenly God Academy's plan would be completely ruined. Therefore, the Heavenly God Academy naturally wouldn't allow Chu Fan to cultivate. And now, the only way for Chu Fan to cultivate was to join forces with the Xianyuan family. Although Chu Fan didn't know how powerful the Xianyuan family truly was, he knew that there should be many alternative paths to enlightenment existences within the Xianyuan family. After all, how could the Xianyuan family, which could make the Heavenly God Academy wary, be weak? Moreover, and more importantly, the Xianyuan family had a significant number of great Emperor-level experts. So these great Emperor-level experts would naturally leave behind their trump cards. Therefore, the best choice to counter the Heavenly God Academy now was the Xianyuan family. Since Senior thinks so highly of me, then my great Xia dynasty and the Xianyuan family shall join hands to fight against the Heavenly God Academy. After a moment of thought, Chu Fan directly agreed to the Xianyuan family suggestion. After all, the Xianyuan family was on his side now, no matter what. And if the Xianyuan family wasn't on his side, Chu Fan truly wouldn't be a match for the Heavenly God Academy. Even though he had already summoned 3 alternative paths to enlightenment existences, it was still very difficult for Chu Fan to defeat the true Heavenly God Academy. Of course, what Chu Fan lacked now was time. As long as he had enough time, those summoned characters cultivating in his time pagoda would receive a great improvement. By then, when Fei Peng and the others had all advanced to alternative path to enlightenment existences, Chu Fan would truly be able to confront the Heavenly God Academy. At that time, even if the top experts within the Heavenly God Academy revived, he would not fear them. Since young friend has agreed to ally with my Xianyuan family, then may young friend come to my Xianyuan family small world? When the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family heard Chu Fan's words, a glimmer instantly appeared in his eyes, and then he asked Chu Fan with a hint of anticipation. At the same time, a fervent look also appeared in his eyes. Chu Fan was a bit confused upon hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family. Although the Heavenly God Academy's strength was indeed powerful, he was currently in no danger within the Great Xia Empire. Moreover, since the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, an alternative path to enlightenment existence, had emerged, they could naturally fight against the Heavenly God Academy. Young friend, don't misunderstand. The main reason I want to invite young friend to my Xianyuan family is to see if the human Emperor Fate on young friend can completely activate my Xianyuan family's Xianyuan sword. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family naturally saw Chu Fan's confusion, so he slowly looked at Chu Fan and spoke. After speaking, his eyes still held a look of anticipation. At this moment, Heavenly Secret Master, who was by his side, also showed an excited expression in his eyes upon hearing these words. At the same time, he was also very much looking forward to the legendary Xianyuan sword. After all, this was once the sword of the Xianyuan human emperor, and more importantly, the Xianyuan sword seemed to have been missing for millions of years. Heavenly Secret Master had initially thought that the Xianyuan sword had disappeared along with the Xianyuan human emperor in this universe. But he hadn't expected that the Xianyuan sword was still within the Xianyuan family. The Xianyuan sword is still in the Xianyuan family? Chu Fan was naturally a bit confused at this moment. After all, shouldn't the Xianyuan sword be in the Xianyuan human emperor's hand? However, after his confusion, he also felt some anticipation for the Xianyuan sword. When a human emperor ancestor fought against the top expert of the Heavenly God Academy, he did not take the Xianyuan sword with him. Instead, he left the Xianyuan sword within the Xianyuan family as the foundation of the Xianyuan family. It's just that our Xianyuan family has not had a possessor of the human emperor Fate, so the Xianyuan sword has been unusable all these years. Of course, experts with the Xianyuan bloodline can also use the Xianyuan sword, but in that case, the power of the Xianyuan sword would be greatly reduced. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family also explained at this moment, but he shook his head as he spoke. Although they could indeed use the Xianyuan sword, the power of the Xianyuan sword, when driven by the Xianyuan bloodline of the Xianyuan family, was not particularly strong. Only a true possessor of the human emperor Fate could use the Xianyuan sword well. This was also why the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family intended to let Chu Fan take the Xianyuan sword. He even wanted Chu Fan to slowly cultivate and grow in their Xianyuan family small world. After all, their Xianyuan family's small world contained the foundation of great emperor-level experts. And it was not just the foundation of one great emperor-level expert. So, even if the experts of the Heavenly God Academy wanted to attack their Xianyuan family, it would not be that simple. In that case, I will go to the Xianyuan family's small world after this great battle ends. After hearing the words of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family, Chu Fan thought for a moment before replying. Although he was also very much looking forward to the Xianyuan sword now, he still felt that he should wait until after this great battle to go to the Xianyuan family. After all, the Great Xia Empire currently only had 3 alternative paths to enlightenment existences, and more importantly, 2 of them were not currently in the Great Xia Empire. If the Heavenly God Academy were to attack their Great Xia Empire, it would probably be difficult for their Great Xia Empire to resist. After this great battle ends, he can summon 2 top experts. Although he didn't know how strong these 2 top experts would be, as long as he could summon 1 alternative path to enlightenment existence, Chu Fan would be very happy. At that time, he could also go to the Xianyuan family with peace of mind. Alright, but young friend should still go to my Xianyuan family quickly, because after going to the Xianyuan family, besides getting the Xianyuan sword, young friend can also see if he can comprehend the human emperor scripture left by my Xianyuan family's human emperor ancestor. The old ancestor of the Xianyuan family nodded upon hearing Chu Fan's words, but at this moment, he reminded Chu Fan again. The human emperor scripture left by their Xianyuan family's old ancestor required a possessor of the human emperor fate to cultivate. This was also why their Xianyuan family had not cultivated it. And the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family felt that Chu Fan in front of him could cultivate their Xianyuan family's human emperor scripture, as he was, after all, the possessor of the human emperor fate. Of course, the Xianyuan human emperor of the Xianyuan family, besides leaving behind the human emperor scripture, naturally also left behind the cultivation technique of a great emperor. Chapter 552, The Great Perfection, Holy Body Slays 2 Elders of the Heavenly God Academy. Mission completed. A light flashed in the eyes of Chu Fan and Heavenly Secret Master when they heard the 3 words, Human Emperor Scripture. After all, this was the cultivation technique created by the legendary Xianyuan human emperor. It could even be said that this cultivation technique was among the most supreme existences throughout these tens of millions of years. However, this cultivation technique could only be cultivated by a prodigy who possessed the human emperor fate. Therefore, very few people hear about this cultivation technique nowadays. Thinking of this, Chu Fan suddenly recalled the Wuxia scripture from a certain novel, a top-tier great emperor scripture that also required the innate sacred body Tao fetus to cultivate. Moreover, the creator of that scripture was the most supreme great emperor-level expert in that novel. He even eventually became an immortal emperor-level existence. Thinking of this, Chu Fan was filled with anticipation. At this moment, he was no longer just anticipating the Xianyuan sword, but also the legendary human emperor scripture. Just as the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family and Chu Fan finished negotiating the alliance between the Xianyuan family and the Great Xia Empire, the great battle in the sky was growing increasingly fierce. The 2 old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy who had achieved alternative path to enlightenment looked at the great accomplishment sacred body opposite them with fear in their eyes. Meanwhile, the great accomplishment sacred body had an expression of excitement in its eyes. Following this, its golden-colored blood, qi, directly caused the entire sky to turn golden. Then, the fist in its hand instantly transformed into a terrifying golden fist and struck towards the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, who was wearing a purple robe. The next second, the great accomplishment sacred body shouted softly toward the sky. 6 paths reincarnation fist. Following this, a terrifying and sinister aura directly rushed toward the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. In the next instant, the great accomplishment sacred body's fist directly struck the body of the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. Even the weapon in its hand could not withstand this single punch. The terrifying force instantly shattered its head. The head of this old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy instantly exploded. And then, without any surprise, it was instantly pulverized. Seeing this, the other old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy naturally did not hesitate. The broken immortal sword in its hand immediately struck towards the great accomplishment sacred body in front of it. The terrifying power instantly swept across the entire sky. At this moment, the great accomplishment sacred body naturally had no time to react. Thus, this terrifying sword light directly slashed across the great accomplishment sacred body's back. A terrifying bloody gash instantly appeared on the great accomplishment sacred body's back. Moreover, the terrifying sword chi was constantly devouring the great accomplishment sacred body's blood chi. However, at this time, a terrifying power within the great accomplishment sacred body's body was continuously repairing itself. Following this, a terrifying golden light instantly appeared in the great accomplishment sacred body's eyes. The next second, it transformed entirely into a golden beam of light, rushing toward the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy. The terrifying great battle continued to rage around the two of them. Meanwhile, the old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy, whose head had just been shattered, was slowly recovering using its blood chi. Even the pulverized skull was slowly regenerating at this moment. However, it was evident that its chi had already weakened by more than half. Although its current cultivation realm was still alternative path to enlightenment, its aura was already not much different from that of a cultivator in the perfected quasi-emperor realm. Clearly, that previous strike had caused significant damage to it. At this point, the recovered old ancestor of the Heavenly God Academy looked at the great accomplishment sacred body with an even angrier expression in its eyes. The next second, it rejoined the battlefield. As the great battle continued to rage in the sky, time slowly passed during this great battle. Yet the Heavenly God Academy never showed up. Thus, this great battle quickly lasted for several days. It finally concluded with the great accomplishment sacred body slaying the two alternative path attainment experts of the Heavenly God Academy. However, the great accomplishment sacred body also suffered severe injuries. Although the great accomplishment sacred body strength was greater than that of the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy, the great accomplishment sacred body, having slain the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy, was also seriously wounded. At this moment, its blood chi was nearly depleted. It could be said that the damage caused to it by this great battle was not as simple as imagined. Nevertheless, at this moment, it looked at the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy it had slain with a hint of a smile in its eyes. Just as the great accomplishment sacred body slew the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy, Chu Fan, who was in the Great Xia Empire, finally received the system's mission reward. Ding! The system mission is complete. Congratulations to the host for receiving the system reward. Hearing this sound, Chu Fan looked at the great accomplishment sacred body in the sky, whose blood chi was nearly depleted, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. Originally, if the great accomplishment sacred body and Xuan Ying had attacked together, the great accomplishment sacred body naturally would not have suffered such severe injuries. It could even be said that the two of them could have resolved the two old ancestors of the Heavenly God Academy in the shortest amount of time. Nevertheless, the outcome was still favorable for the Great Xia Empire. Of course, the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family was extremely shocked at this moment. Only those who truly reached alternative path to enlightenment understood how difficult it was to slay an existence at alternative path to enlightenment. Yet, the great accomplishment sacred body of the Great Xia Empire in front of them had so easily slain two alternative path to enlightenment existences. One must know that their Xianyuan family's alternative path to enlightenment expert once spent several months just to slay a Forbidden Zone Supreme. System: exchange my Great Sage summoning card for a Quasi-Emperor summoning card. Chu Fan, however, was not paying attention to the expression of the old ancestor of the Xianyuan family beside him. Instead, he began communicating with the system. He intended to exchange his Great Sage summoning card for a Quasi-Emperor summoning card. Ding! Quasi-Emperor summoning card exchange successful. The host now possesses one Quasi-Emperor summoning card. Does the host wish to summon? After Chu Fan finished speaking, a Quasi-Emperor summoning card appeared in his mind. In addition to this Quasi-Emperor summoning card, he still possessed two Great Sage summoning cards. These were the remaining Great Sage summoning cards after exchanging for the Quasi-Emperor summoning card. Summon. After hearing the system's voice, Chu Fan chose to summon immediately, though he was curious about what kind of existence he would summon this time. If he summoned a Quasi-Emperor level expert at the Quasi-Emperor early stage, then this summon would be somewhat disappointing for him. Ding! Quasi-Emperor summoning card successfully used. Congratulations to the host for successfully summoning Gai Jiuyo. As Chu Fan's voice fell, the system's voice rang out in his mind once again. Simultaneously, the summoned figure slowly appeared on the summoning card. A dashing middle-aged man appeared on the summoning card. When Chu Fan heard the three words, Gai Jiuyo, an expression of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. Chapter 553 Quasi-Emperor Perfection Realm overwhelms the 9 netherworlds. First summoning of the Supreme, free and unfettered Supreme. It can be said that summoning Gai Jiuyo is comparable to summoning an alternative path to enlightenment existence. Moreover, Gai Jiuyo was also a most regrettable prodigy. If not for the great Emperor's Dao, he definitely would have attained the great Emperor realm. It can be said that he was the most regrettable prodigy of that era. But even so, in his later years, he sacrificed his life for the entire world. However, even then, at merely the perfected Quasi-Emperor realm, he was an existence capable of battling the supreme beings in the restricted zones. Therefore, summoning Gai Jiuyo is equivalent to summoning a Supreme Being level existence. What's more, according to the summon card, Guy Jiuyo's age is only in his middle years, so the current Guy Jiuyo is equivalent to an alternative path to enlightenment existence. It's just that his cultivation has not yet reached alternative path to enlightenment. Thus, Chu Fan, who had summoned Guy Jiuyo, instantly showed a look of excitement on his face. After all, a Quasi-Emperor Realm summon card summoned an existence equivalent to an alternative path to enlightenment, so he was naturally excited. Moreover, Guy Jiuyo, only in his middle years, can break through to alternative path to enlightenment with his talent upon arriving in this world, and it can even be said that Guy Jiuyo can break through to the Great Emperor Realm with his own strength. Of course, wanting to break through to the Great Emperor Realm is not that simple, because there are too many top prodigies and prodigies in the Great Xia Empire right now. The Son of Heaven's talent alone surpasses everyone present. After all, he is known as one of the chaotic ancient F4. And more importantly, the Son of Heaven had already breakthrough to the Immortal King realm. It's just that when he was summoned, he was suppressed, which is why he only reached the alternative path to enlightenment existence. Therefore, it won't be too difficult for him to break through to the Great Emperor realm. Chu Fan even felt that the Son of Heaven might break through to the Great Emperor realm right before him. However, even if the Son of Heaven break through to the Great Emperor realm, it wouldn't affect Chu Fan. Although an era only allows one Great Emperor realm existence to appear, Chu Fan wants to break through to the legendary Human Emperor realm. Although the Human Emperor realm is also considered a realm within the Great Emperor realm, Chu Fan believes he can break through to the Human Emperor realm. And more importantly, although an era only allows one Great Emperor level expert to appear, didn't the Xianyuan family once have two Great Emperor realm existences in the same era? Moreover, Xianyuan Longting of the former Xianyuan family had not yet breakthrough to the Human Emperor realm. He directly breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm after Xianyuan Haoran breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm. Therefore, Chu Fan naturally doesn't fear these top experts of their Great Xia Empire breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm. It can even be said that these top experts' breakthrough to the Great Emperor realm is more beneficial to him. Chu Fan then slowly opened Guy Jiuyo's introduction. As Chu Fan expected, Guy Jiuyo's cultivation was indeed at the perfected Quasi-Emperor realm. Of course, this only means that his realm is at the perfected Quasi-Emperor realm. After Chu Fan summoned Guy Jiuyo, he slowly turned his gaze to the other two summon cards. Although he doesn't know what kind of existences these two summon cards rewarded by the system can summon, at the very least, they can surpass Chu Fan's current cultivation. In other words, the cultivation of the characters summoned by these two top-tier summon cards is at least at the Quasi-Emperor realm. After all, Chu Fan is currently in the Quasi-Emperor early stage. System used those two top-tier summon cards in the system space. Subsequently, Chu Fan, without any hesitation, directly used these two top-tier summon cards, but as he used them, a look of anticipation appeared on his face. After all, he also wanted to see what kind of existences these two top-tier summon cards could summon. If they could summon legendary Great Emperor level experts, then these two top-tier summon cards would be quite good. As Chu Fan's words fell, the system's voice began to ring in his mind. Ding top-tier summon card used successfully. Host successfully summoned Carefree Supreme Being, Void Realm Great Emperor. Upon hearing the system's voice, Chu Fan was completely stunned. Although he was very much looking forward to summoning a Great Emperor level existence this time. But he didn't expect that this time's summoned characters actually included Great Emperor level existences. Then, with a hint of excitement in his eyes, he directly entered the system space. He then saw two cards appear in the system space. On one of them, a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance appeared, but a terrifying and dark chi emanated from his body. This person was the Carefree Supreme Being, a Supreme Being level existence from the Heaven-Shrouding world. He was also an existence who had self-sever blade. The summoned Carefree Supreme Being's cultivation was only at the Supreme Being realm. However, even if his cultivation was only at the Supreme Being realm, the Carefree Supreme Being was originally a Great Emperor level existence who had self-sever blade. And more importantly, he was a top existence among the Great Emperor realm. So even if he self-severed a blade to become a Supreme Being level existence, he was still a top existence within the Supreme Being realm. Therefore, after Chu Fan finished reading the introduction about the Carefree Supreme Being, a smile appeared on his face. Because Supreme Being level combat power was appearing for the first time in their Great Xia Empire. After all, the characters Chu Fan had previously summoned were either Quasi-Emperor level or Alternative Path to Enlightenment. Although the combat power of Alternative Path Attainment experts far exceeds that of ordinary Supreme Being level existences, Alternative Path Attainment experts still need a certain amount of time to defeat Supreme Being level experts. What's more, Supreme Being level experts can directly undergo ultimate sublimation. At that time, they will directly be able to reach the Great Emperor realm. Having reached the Great Emperor realm, it would naturally not be too difficult for them to defeat alternative path to enlightenment. Therefore, when Chu Fan summoned this supreme being level carefree supreme being, a look of curiosity also appeared in his eyes. If this carefree supreme being directly underwent ultimate sublimation, would his strength be able to reach the peak of this world? After all, the peak of this world is the Great Emperor realm. Moreover, Chu Fan's commands are absolute for them. When a true crisis arrives, Chu Fan will definitely make him undergo ultimate sublimation. Of course, if it doesn't reach that point, Chu Fan naturally wouldn't make this carefree supreme being undergo ultimate sublimation. After all, no matter what, once the carefree supreme being is summoned, he belongs to their Great Xia Empire. And as long as the carefree supreme being continuously cultivates in the Time Pagoda, perhaps he will have a chance to break free from his supreme being realm and break through to the Great Emperor realm again. Of course, this situation is very slim. Only by entering the legendary mortal world Immortal Ascension, like in the world where the carefree supreme being resides, will he have a chance to sever his true supreme being realm. Chapter 554, The Great Emperor Realm. The Void Great Emperor, the division of the Great Emperor realm, and the gap between the Supreme Realm. However, the appearance of the carefree supreme being also provided the Great Xia Empire with another powerful trump card. Moreover, Chu Fan believed that there must be something in the system space that could truly allow the carefree supreme being to achieve the Great Emperor realm. As long as his national destiny value was sufficient, Chu Fan could buy an immortal medicine to allow the carefree supreme being to truly live another life. After reading the introduction about the carefree supreme being, Chu Fan slowly turned his gaze to the last summon card in his system space. The last summon card showed a middle-aged man with a somewhat ordinary appearance, and his face carried a hint of vicissitude. Just one look made people feel immense pity for this middle-aged man. At the same time, the middle-aged man held a void mirror in his hand, his eyes filled with a domineering aura. This person was none other than the Void Realm Great Emperor, and also the strongest figure Chu Fan had summoned this time. Void Realm Great Emperor. Chu Fan's biggest impression of him was that one phrase, "My Void Realm life is not weaker than anyone." Moreover, the Void Realm Great Emperor was considered a rather tragic Great Emperor in that novel. One must know that the Void Realm Great Emperor did not live to the end of a Great Emperor's lifespan, but instead fell prematurely, primarily because he had been constantly fighting in the Void Realm during his youth. His continuous battles with the Supreme Beings in the restricted zones were the reason for his early demise. Furthermore, the Void Realm Great Emperor was also a Great Emperor-level existence who destroyed many Supreme Beings in the restricted zones. He even successfully almost shattered a restricted zone. However, even so, the Void Realm Great Emperor was still considered one of the top Great Emperor-level experts in that universe. After all, being able to become one of the strongest Great Emperors below Wuxia Great Emperor, the Void Realm Great Emperor's strength naturally couldn't be too weak. More importantly, even after the Void Realm Great Emperor fell, his descendants also fell fighting in the restricted zones. This was a Great Emperor-level expert who fought for the human race. However, the Void Realm Great Emperor summoned this time was in his middle age, which meant that the Void Realm Great Emperor summoned this time was at his peak strength. Chu Fan also understood the system's summoning rules at this point. It could be said that the characters he summoned were all in their peak periods. Of course, the Son of Heaven and others were exceptions, as the Son of Heaven's true peak period was when he reached the Immortal King realm. Both the Void Realm Great Emperor and Gai Jiuyo were in their peak periods. Looking at the Void Realm Great Emperor in the system space, Chu Fan was very curious and directly opened the introduction about the Void Realm Great Emperor. Subsequently, the Void Realm Great Emperor's cultivation panel appeared before Chu Fan. Upon seeing the Void Realm Great Emperor's cultivation, Chu Fan was stunned, because the Void Realm Great Emperor's cultivation had actually reached the Great Emperor Perfection realm. Chu Fan hadn't expected that the Great Emperor realm would also be divided into early stage, middle stage, and late stage. One must know that Chu Fan had thought that once one entered the Great Emperor realm, there would be no further distinctions in realm. After all, in this world, the realm of Great Emperor realm experts had never been classified. Of course, perhaps it was because Chu Fan was unaware of the Great Emperor realm's classification. So he thought that the Great Emperor realm was the peak with no realm classification. However, the appearance of the Void Realm Great Emperor made him aware of the Great Emperor realm's classification, because the Void Realm Great Emperor's cultivation was actually at the Great Emperor Perfection realm. This made Chu Fan curious, so he directly asked the system, since the Great Emperor realm in this world is divided into early stage, middle stage, and late stage, what is the difference between those supreme being level combat powers and the Great Emperor realm? It could be said that this question was what Chu Fan was most curious about now. After all, the Great Xia Empire now possessed supreme being level experts and alternative path attainment experts. So he was naturally curious about what role these supreme beings and alternative path attainment experts played within the Great Emperor realm. Ding! The Great Emperor realm is the strongest expert that this heaven and earth can bear. As for those supreme beings in the supreme being realm, they self-severed a blade, so their cultivation directly fell from the Great Emperor realm. But their realm is far beyond the Quasi-Emperor realm. After Chu Fan's words fell, the system began to explain to him. It turned out that the Supreme Being realm was a realm formed by Great Emperor realm experts self-severing a blade. Their realm did not exist in the true realm classification. At the same time, their strength was far superior to that of Quasi-Emperor realm experts. But because of the self-severing of a blade, their strength was also weaker than that of ordinary Great Emperor realm experts. Therefore, these Great Emperor realm experts who self-sever a blade were called Supreme Beings, a realm between Quasi-Emperor and Great Emperor. At the same time, their true strength only reached the strongest below Great Emperor. It was stronger than the strength of Quasi-Emperor level cultivators. However, fighting against true Great Emperor realm experts was somewhat inferior. They were even slightly weaker than ordinary early-stage Great Emperor experts. It's just that they can undergo ultimate sublimation. After ultimate sublimation, their original realm will directly return. For example, if a Supreme Being level expert cultivation was late-stage Great Emperor before self-severing a blade, then after ultimate sublimation, his realm would be late-stage Great Emperor. This is also why those experts who have just broken through to the Great Emperor realm choose not to fight to the death with Supreme Being realm experts. After all, no one knows what level of strength this Supreme Being level expert will reach after ultimate sublimation. However, there is a certain gap between alternative path attainment cultivators and Supreme Being level cultivators. Because alternative path attainment experts have already touched the Tao, alternative path attainment cultivators are unable to enter the Great Emperor realm. There are many reasons, such as a Great Emperor level expert suppressing this era, or the Tao suppressing them, preventing them from breaking through to the Great Emperor realm. This is what caused those peak Quasi-Emperor realm expert to break through to alternative path to enlightenment. The strength of these alternative path attainment experts generally reaches early-stage Great Emperor. An alternative path to enlightenment also belongs to a special realm. Therefore, they're also like the Supreme Being realm, not belonging to the current realm. However, the combat power of alternative path attainment experts has reached early-stage Great Emperor. The strongest alternative path attainment experts can reach about middle-stage Great Emperor. For example, the current Son of Heaven's strength in the Heavenly Court might reach middle-stage Great Emperor. As long as he breaks through to the Great Emperor realm, he can be on par with the Human Emperor realm. And the Human Emperor realm in this world is also considered an alternative Heavenly Emperor realm. As long as one can step into the Human Emperor realm, even a cultivator who has just stepped into the Human Emperor realm can fight against a late-stage Great Emperor expert. This is also why the combat power of the former Xianyuan Human Emperor was so terrifying. And after reaching the Great Emperor Perfection realm, one will successfully become the strongest existence between this heaven and earth. However, this is also the top combat power of a first-generation Great Emperor. And above the first-generation Great Emperor, there are also second-generation Great Emperor and third-generation Great Emperor. The former Xianyuan Human Emperor's combat power was probably at the level of a fifth-generation Great Emperor.